the darkness surrounds me, shape-shifting in the night, stalking you. Does my face seem familiar? Does my body feel you more? Will I change you or will it end you? And the power that I have could give you eternal life. Death doesn't know me. I've become eternal. When the hunger wakes me, I live to feed. With the darkness surrounds me, where the mist, she follows me. I walk alone in the night, watching you, following you, leading on you through the night. When the hunger wakes me, I live to feed. With the darkness surrounds me. Oh, your life, I was still. I become the living dead. I own the darkness, and no heart beats inside of me. I become eternal. When the hunger wakes me, I live to feed. With the darkness surrounds me.
Sirens of the Caspian Sea, the depths of the ocean we gather in splendor, sunken ships and treasure, luring sailors with our songs, hypnotic hymns, promises of bliss, whirling and swirling. The warmth of the ocean, spinning with souls in motion. Take caution, my friend, this could be the end. still, you're mortal, so frail. I'm a figment of your imagination. Our beauty, our song, intoxicating, mesmerizing sound, ships running round. In calm or storm, you won't see the shore. Your final resting place, the ocean floor, swirling and twirling, the warmth of the ocean, spinning with souls in motion. Take caution, my friend, this could be the end. A mermaid's tale, you're mortal, so frail. Swimming with the souls of men untold, watching their demise unfold. Never to grow old, their stories never told. The souls of the sea are now caressing me. Your final resting place, the ocean, the sea, the murder of men, no one will ever find them. Swirling and twirling, the warmth of the ocean, spinning with souls in motion. Take caution, my friend, this could be the end. A mermaid's tale, you're mortal, so frail.
From long ago, the berserker traveled, crossing raging seas, snatching souls, devouring, conquering and beast. The seas could not tame me, war could not break me to feel so alive. Overflowing elation, ready for war, ready for war, ready for war, ready for war. The lands could not hold me.
Hey, folks. Welcome to Paranormal Roundtable. I'm your host, Josh Turner, and this is PRT. There wasn't a whole lot going on today, whatever, because it's 22 degrees here, 23, something like that. But now there is. Okay. Kind of ridiculous. So, for starters, I'm sure this has happened to a lot of you, but I have no clue why this happened. I was in a group chat that I was invited to. And when I started talking about, people giving their encounters to me to, whatever, somebody reported it. And this is what they did. They said that it was bullying and harassment. My exact message was to this one person that was in there. And I said, if you want to come on the show and tell your encounter, I could retell it for you. It's just what I do all the time. And somebody in there reported me for bullying and harassment. Now, I think it is part of the Cryptid Wrangler groups. And I messaged the main guy for that, and he's ignored me. So just letting you know, be careful when you go in there into those groups, because these people, they turn me in. And so don't know how that's bullying and harassment. Don't know how that's doing anything wrong, but somebody in there didn't like me. Probably don't even know me, probably just whatever. And so, yeah. All right. So there's that. So now they've restricted my Facebook accounts, and they said that I can't participate in chats. I can't participate in groups. I'm basically suspended from doing I can't do anything now. And Facebook's a very big part of what we do to promote the show. And now we have a new TikTok. I don't know much about it. Nellie's been handling it. And I can't really, she's not here yet, so I can't really tell you a whole lot about it. I know it's just under Paranormal Roundtable. Now, there's another one called Paranormal Roundtable, and I'm not real sure what that is. I think that was something that was created by Kim, and he never fixed it, and he just kind of left it there. And it was like he started over and did something else because I told him I really didn't want to do TikTok. But now we're doing TikTok, so we're on TikTok. Yeah, the jacket. This is and we got the Cobra going, right? It's way back Wednesday, right? Today's Wednesday, so I thought, you know what? Let me bust out the jean jacket. Here we are with the jean jacket. Remember these back in the 80s? This was what it was. This was Anthony doesn't know. This is how we dressed back in the 80s. Like this was all the rage. You had to have a jean jacket. In the mid to late 80s, the jean jacket was in. I think it was even earlier than that. I think in my first photo of a jean jacket, it was a red, ugly one. And it was like a red denim. And I think I was like 4 years old or 5 years old, and I had the butterfly collar. And I'm like, you know, and then I had another one, a jean jacket that I got like in the mid 80s. So it was around, you know. I had one that was a dark blue, and I was like 5 or 6. And then I got one that was kind of like this, you know. But that's how we did it, man. That's how we rolled. Fluorescent shoestrings when I was a kid, that was like a big deal. Like you were cool if you had fluorescent shoestrings. I was like, I was pimping, man. I had the fluorescent shoestrings. You know how I got them? My friends didn't know this. I didn't tell people. But my mother was a manager at Walmart, and they had these what do you call those? The little gumball machines where you could get, and they had like the shoestrings and the little balls in there. So my mother, she's pretty cool about stuff. Like she did some, you know, we had our issues, but she what she did was, me and my sisters both wanted them, and so she basically stalked the person that came and refilled it, and she got to know them, and it was a lady and a guy that used to do it. And they were kind of hippy dippy people. I got to know them. And so we went to they handed my mom a few of them, but they had like a little garage that they would keep them in Cameron, Texas. And so we drove out there, and they gave us like all the fluorescent colors, 2 or 3 of each. It was crazy. Because my mom got to know them, and then they came to our church, and then we went to their church. And my mother was like me. But my dad was the same way too. I mean, they both had like tons of friends. Everybody loved my mom and dad. Everybody was like, they had tons of friends. So when you went around town, they were like, oh, you're Marianne's kid or you're Owen's kid. So they were nice to everybody but me. So it was gets it worked out. But there were some good things my mother did. She used to get a discount at the Walmart. I don't remember, it was like 20% or something, which is pretty good, you know. Yeah. But she would get me like a He-Man or a G.I. Joe or a Transformer every week, like with her discount. And so even when she went to go work as the manager at H-E-B, she stayed working there like I think like once or twice a week or something. On her day off, she would go and work at Walmart. And I was always like, why are you working at Walmart when you're working as the manager at H-E-B? And she's like, well, they had her working the service desk, whatever. She's like, I want to keep my discount.
Yeah.
So that was cool. And then H-E-B gave her a discount too. And so they would sometimes have like toys and things like that. And H-E-B, they had some weird stuff there. And I'm talking about this because we're waiting people to join or whatever.
Yeah.
But they had Robotech in there. And I thought it was...
what was Robotech?
You don't know Robotech? Look it up. It's too much to explain. It's in the 80s. And they had some of those... the jets, the ones that could train the spaceship, whatever. They
it's
were
like
like
a-
robots. They were from Japan.
Like a knockoff Transformers?
No, it was. I think Robotech might have been before Transformers, but it was from Japan. Transformers is just the one that took off here, but they had other stuff like Voltron and Robotech. It was like GoBots. They had all kinds.
Yeah.
They had all these different kinds of shows over in Japan. One of my friends got to go with his parents to Japan, and he came back with like a bunch of different types of robots. All I saw were like weird squiggly language, whatever. That's all I saw, and then robot, and he had a bunch of them, dude. And we didn't know the names of them, dude.
I used to see those a lot at the flea market.
Yeah, they're
Always selling like these little Japanese robot toys.
But most of those are Chinese knockoff.
Yeah.
These were straight from Japan. And then my friend's parents went to Hong Kong, same kid, and they brought back a bunch of different toys and stuff. The factories there, though, they didn't sell them in Hong Kong, but you could go to the factories and get them out of the box. Like if you bought them out of the box, they had like the throwaways. And a lot of times the ones that they threw away, there wasn't anything really wrong with them. So they came back with like 50 of them, you know, that they had in the throwaway box, and you could buy them in bulk for like $2 for $1. Like, yeah. And so they're selling them over here in the States for like $2, $3 a pop. And then they're over there 50 cents. So they came back with a bunch of different stuff because his parents traveled. His dad, that's what he did. He traveled. And so we got to, even though living in Rockdale, a little town, we got to enjoy some pretty cool stuff, man. I really, I like that. My childhood was in the 80s. So thank you for that donation, Tito. It was weird last weekend. Like we were like, oh, thank you for then there was no donations. And then several people donated at the end there. I appreciate that. Thank you. It's really more about just feeling like I'm doing my job, you know, because obviously donations aren't really gonna cut it. You have to have the AdSense and all that. And so that's what we do. So here's what happened. That's the actual message you see that is, I said, if you have had, how can you do this? I'm trying to make it just looks white. I'm trying to make it.
It's kind of hard to get that camera.
It's hard to get it to focus in on it. Violence and incitement, bullying and harassment. Oh man, it jumped. How do you go back?
Let me see.
Okay. Anyways, all I said on there was like, if you've had an encounter, you know, whatever, and they turned me in, and Facebook stuck it in and broke it off, and so now all my accounts are restricted, and I don't know for how long.
You just got to get it like closer.
Yeah, see, if you have had an encounter, you can talk to me and maybe I'll tell it, and then the rest was I'll let you, or you can tell it, you know. And so for that, they restricted my accounts, and they said that I'm in trouble for bullying and harassment, and pretty sorry. This goes against our community standards on violence and incitement.
What's the name of that group?
It's called the
Northern Lights something.
Northern.
It's right there on top of the message,
Here,
so we can
don't see
warn
it on
people
there.
to stay out of there because there are a bunch of sissies.
Yeah.
Northern States Regional Sightings.
Yeah.
So if you're not a sissy, then stay out of there.
Yeah, I got invited. There was like a whole bunch of them from Cryptid Wrangler, and so I just went into there and I saw a few people I knew and some of them, and I talked to a few people, and I said something, you know, to somebody in there and was like, hey, if you want to tell your encounter, whatever. And they were actually, what it looked like, they were in the process of communicating. So I went back to go and then that happened.
And the thing is, with the new Facebook rules, like they don't really they really scaled back the automatic algorithm, just like reporting things. So now if you get something like that, more than likely it's because somebody actually manually reported it.
No, yeah, they did.
Yeah,
they had to.
Yeah,
that's not automatic.
No,
Somebody reported that, but it's ridiculous that Facebook is that stupid that they're just going to sit there and let them do it. So now I'm restricted on Facebook, and we've been doing a lot of work and promoting the show on Facebook. So that's real cute, and those people think they're being cute. I know that we're targeted big time. We really are. So after the show tonight, I have something I want to talk about, and so does Anthony, and so does my wife. And so we're going to go to Rumble to say what we have to say, because we don't want to say it on here, because I don't need to be restricted and messed with any more than I already am on YouTube. They didn't even give me the option, Betsy, to appeal. It's not even on there. Like, they're just, that's it. You're a piece of crap. So we're going to, whatever. And what it is these people are mass reporting me. They report everything I do and everything I say, whether it's on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram. I'm constantly being reported. They stalk us, and somebody had said something, and my wife, I didn't, but my wife had. She posted it in the Paranormal Roundtable News. It's called PRT News, and you can go and look, and you can see the attacks, what they're doing. We're not even responding to them. We don't go to their deal and say anything to them. We just post it in PRT News and show you what they're doing. And it's just continually. And today they crossed a line that goes, you're talking about my mom. And it was like, you know what, dude? I mean, we didn't have the best relationship, and I've said that before. But it's not right for you to come out there and say what you said, because you're insinuating something. And I'm going to set the record straight about a few things tonight. I'm going to go to Rumble, and I'm going to say what I got to say. And I'm not going to do it on here. So, yeah. And there's a link to PRT News. I've never, during all the stuff that happened before, these people have said some really mean, horrible, nasty things about us, all of us. But they have, when you think there's no lower bar they can sink to, they sink below it. It's beyond. So, and I know they're watching, because they stalk us relentlessly. They were watching last night's show, and they made some comments about it. They have nothing better to do with their lives. Just be thankful you're not them. Somebody posted that they were glad that they weren't them. You be glad you're not them. Is that Story?
Yeah.
Hey, Story. What's up, sweet girl?
Yeah, she's been getting kind of antsy, so I want to bring her.
We had her last night on patrol, and she was just getting into everything. We tried to spend some more time with her, because she's
my
alone
little
now.
noodle rat.
We had somebody babysitting our animals during the first conference, and her sister, they didn't pay attention. And the sister passed away. And then was it Daisy that ate? No, it was
Snowy that.
No, I'm talking about the other two. Daisy and
Daisy and Stogie. Yeah.
One of them ate the mat, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, how did the other one pass?
Same way, just
it was the same thing.
Just being crazy. Oh,
I thought that there was
here
something
goes this
else.
one.
But she's been so resilient, and she's smart. She doesn't do the things that the other ones did. And Snowy, her sister, was just so rambunctious. Because I remember one time I let Stogie out, or Daisy out, and Stogie bolted, and I had to run. He went straight, like it was the loft, and there was just a drop off right there, and he went straight for it, and I had to catch him, and then he slipped out again, and I finally caught him. And the other ones were trying to get out, but not her. She was just chilling. She's just a sweetheart, Amy Krill, they're always hyped up. They're always hyped up, man.
I mean, Story's kind of amped up right now, but she's been the most docile one. See, look at her with the little feet. Oh, you can't see with the chat, but watch out, girl. She's just all over the place.
She's a good kid. Good girl. I'll be right back.
Say hey, mama. Here. Let's entertain him. Get the little monster. Get that little monster. Get him. Oh, shit. You're not supposed to actually get him. That's how the other two died. They just ate something they weren't supposed to eat. They couldn't digest it. So, hang on. Okay, let me see the chat here. Oh, Amy, if you haven't had a ferret, I'd recommend it. They're great little pets. But you got to buy them with the. It depends on where you get them, but like most places, if you get them like at a like a reputable pet store or like a reputable dealer or breeder, whatever, that they'll have the scent glands removed from them, because they do smell terrible if you just buy them without those glands being removed. They're pretty bad. But yeah, she's the last one standing. She's the first one we had. She's the first one we got, and now she's the last one standing.
Yep.
All the other ones tragically passed, but they don't live long lives, really.
They don't.
Sad.
And then Nellie brought home the hamster, and she's like, they don't live but a couple of years, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna get attached to something, and then I hate that, man. It's just, it sucks. It really sucks. You get attached to an animal, and then they go away. Our cats have been with us for a while. Our other dogs have been with us for a while. The pig, supposedly he's long lived, so that's cool. I got to, I'm going to be missing Truffles. But yeah, I don't know what to think about that group, man. Like, they invited me in there, I guess, just so they could do that. That's the only thing I could think of, because I got invited and I joined, and there were several of them going at one time. I don't really know how there was like 12 of them. And so I was in there talking to people, and apparently, who knows? Oh boy, so many people that just have bought into the bullcrap against us. Well, we're gonna deal with that tonight. We're gonna say what we gotta say after the show. I'm gonna show you some things that because I'm really sick of it, man. I'm just really tired of people attacking me and talking about my mom. It's like, my mom's deceased. That's my mother, okay? And you have no idea what went on, and I'm going to tell you exactly how it went. I'm going to be honest with you, because enough is enough from these people. They've spread so much hatred and disinformation that, people see us and they got something negative to say. It's like, just, you don't even know. You don't even know us. And you just make a preconceived judgment, whatever. But that's fine. We still get lots of people that message us, lots of people that want their stories heard, and lots of people who want to come on and talk. And that's a good thing. So I don't need that. I don't need help from these other groups, which I guess I'm not allowed to participate in now for a while, until however long they decide that. So
the good thing about that is that that restriction comes off the 20th, which is what, tomorrow?
I thought it said 4. Well, it's just 4 days.
It says February 20th.
It says you'll hear back in 4 days. That's what it says. Oh, well, I mean, who cares? Either way, it doesn't matter. It's ridiculous. I got things to do. Just letting you know, just be careful what you do. If you say anything, that there's these people out there that just can't stand us, and it doesn't matter what you do or say, they're going to be the way they are. Yeah, my whole life, though, there's been a lot of people that are jealous. I mean, just jealous, whatever. If you succeed and they don't, or whatever, or they're too damn lazy, because a lot of it, there's two things: laziness and jealousy go hand in hand. Lazy people ultimately become jealous people because they're mad because someone else did something better than them, and they're always like, why not me? Well, not you, because you're lazy and you didn't get it done, and this other person did, and now you're mad. Case in point, I remember one time, this is a short story, it's not real long, but I remember when I was a freshman in high school and I was in an art class. And it was like my only elective. I had like an art class, and I figured out at an earlier age that I couldn't really draw. Like, I could draw cartoons and make them look kind of cool, but I couldn't do shading and all that. It was just, and I didn't really have the drive to do it. I was just like, this isn't for me, But there was this kid who did this art project, and it was pretty cool. Like, he had made this whole three-dimensional like castle looking thing, and this other kid just walked by it and just punched it and smashed it, and then like threw it on the ground and kicked it. We got, sent to the principal's office. And I remember that kid, he was a Hispanic kid named Daniel. And it wasn't my friend Daniel Robles. It was this other kid named Daniel. I'm not going to say his last name because he's probably still around. And, but anyways, he was always like this, like, he always had his mouth open.
Breather.
Yeah. He was like all the time, like, and if you got your mouth open all the time, you're probably stupid. Close your mouth.
Yeah.
And I don't care who I offend. I've already offended.
No, it's literally true. It's
really true. So he was always like, with his mouth open, and he did that out of the blue. The kid who made that, it was actually a female. It was a girl. She made that, and she had no idea why he did it. He just did it, and he never gave an excuse. And then they didn't really discipline him the way they should have. And about like 6 months later, he was barely in class. He would pop in and out, and I guess he was just like a dope head, I mean, I played ball, so I don't know. Kids like that, I just like, whatever, who gives a shit. But this kid was like in class, he just gets up and stabs this other kid with a pencil in the neck. And it luckily didn't hit anything serious. But the kid should have been gone for all and apparently he had done some other antics too, because I was in a math class with him and I was just doing my math, and this kid does this. And yeah, so pretty stupid. And then luckily for me, I moved up to like advanced placement and stuff, so I didn't have to deal with all this riffraff. I mean, I'm not trying to talk like, oh, I'm better, but I didn't have to deal with it.
No.
But I picked up a tutoring deal because it gave you extra credit. So I did like a tutoring thing, and I had to get there like at 6:30, 7 in the morning, man. And so I had to deal with these kind of kids, and they had learning disabilities, and most of them were pretty cool, but one of them was just like, he was always getting mad and slamming his hand on the table because he couldn't figure stuff out. And he didn't pull this crap with me, but one of the other tutors, he got mad and just grabbed her and started like choking her and stuff. And I was like, this is the kind of kids, that was in my hometown. But then when I moved to Austin, it got worse. Like when I did the tutoring thing, like I said, hey, can I do this? Whatever. The kids in there, they were like bad kids, man. They were just tossing bad kids in there. Like, hey, here, you have a learning disability. No, you don't. You're psychotic. If that's a learning disability, I guess, And so me and my friend Greg, we were like, we helped people like tutor them, whatever. And eventually we both just said, yeah, to hell with this. Greg's an African-American guy. He's one of my really good friends. You know who he is, Anthony. And we both just said, extra credit, there's usually ways to get it. Than dealing with psychopaths, because one kid just literally tried to fight me. Didn't realize though that he was in the Latin Kings, and he had like a big old like family that was involved. And I don't even know why this kid got mad, because I kept telling him he was doing the problem wrong. I'm like, look, you're not doing it right. I was like, it's very simple. It's not simple. I said, look, it is simple, all right. And he thought I was condescending, and I said, look, man, And so when I told him in Spanish, he thought that I was just like a white guy who had learned Spanish so I could be ethnic or something. I'm like, no, dude, my mom's Mexican, bro. Like, why are you like all chingon, dude? So this is what it is, man. Stupid people do stupid things, and then they get in trouble for their stupid problems and make life hard for the rest of us. You're like, oh, I could have made it. And no, you couldn't have, because you're not smart. So quit lying to yourself. Somebody lied to you. People lie to people about being able to sing too. They'll be like, oh yeah, I can sing. And you hear it and you're like, oh, shoot, man, I have a friend like that. And I'm like, dude, I'm not going to put him on the spot, but not good, because his parents told him, and some choir person from the church told him that he could sing. And the truth is, it's horrible. And if you get in the vehicle with him, he'll start singing, and you're just like, oh. No. Speaking of people who can't sing, where's Scorpion at? I don't see him. I don't want to be mean, but Scorpion's another one. He's he'll stop though if you ask him. But my other friend, he really thinks he's a singer. He's just like, hey, how you doing?
Hi.
So Nellie is here.
Had something scary happen to me, but then it wasn't.
You have to move this way so people can see
Yeah,
you.
hold on. I'm trying to get situated.
Okay. So we're going to get started here. So here's what happened. The people that we were talking about last week. Now this guy had a werewolf encounter. That's what I call it. I don't know what you would call it, but I say it's a werewolf because it seems like singing is fun if people like it, Scorpion. But you and I'm going to call him B. Y'all hurt people's ears. You know that red stuff coming out? That's not ketchup. That's blood from you guys. Scorpion's probably singing right now. I sing good. No, you don't, and you're off key. He tried to compare me singing. I said, I'm not trying to be a singer. I'm not the one that was told as a kid, hey, you can sing good. You can do anything you want. Go jump off that building. You can literally fly. Literally. You're like a bird. And I'm like, I don't believe you. You first. Like, oh, it didn't work. Look, the counselor lied. Counselor lied. That happened to me at church camp, actually. I watched a kid nearly drown because a counselor that was like 3 years older than us told him he could swim. I'm not even joking.
Oh my God.
And his name was Tony. His name was Tony. But he wasn't an Asian kid. He wasn't like you, Tony. He was smarter. He was actually really smart. I'm joking, Tony. I'm messing with you. Tony, say hi, everybody, to Tony. He's up there working. But he's a post where he can just curl up into a little ball like a cat and just sleep. He's probably like, I'm awake right now until the show's over. I got some decorum. So what happened though, I talked to this guy and he's like, look, man, he goes, my aunt has something crazy and it had to do with a storage facility. So he had given me this a while back. So I contacted him and I said, hey, I was just thinking about doing something about that show or doing a show about the subject about storages because, and then I talked to a manager of one of these facilities and I'm waiting for him to get back with me because he manages one here in Austin. And he said, you wouldn't believe the scary stuff that happens. I was like, try me. And it was at the storage we used to have. Remember? Mm-hmm. And he was like, he was just working there, but he said, you wouldn't believe the stuff. He goes, the people that run it, the managers, it's usually there a couple days a week. He said, they can tell you some terrifying things because they're out there at night and that storage place closes at like 10, but they close it up and then they have to do a drive through and everything. And then sometimes they're out there at like 11 o'clock because people will get stuck in there, moving stuff and they won't leave. So they could be out there 11, 12 at night and it's a big place and you're by yourself. And one night her name was Beth. So Bethany gave us a story, and then I hate to say this, but I can't remember the guy's name. He was a young guy. He looked like I just remember he looked like that dude from what was that movie with Seth Rogen where they become college? Zach.
Oh, were
Efron.
they moving next to him?
Zac Efron.
Yeah,
He looks.
yeah.
This guy, I kid you not, he looks like Zac Efron. I told him, I said, you look like Zach, whatever. And he's like, yeah, everybody. He's like typing. He's like, everybody says that. And I said, well, you do, man. You could be his double, man. But the guy, he goes, man, we work here. He goes, I've had some weird, creepy stuff happen to me. He's like, there was a female employee that worked there. And something right outside of this one, that story is just off the chain. I'll tell you if I have time. But what happened, though, and like I said, we're going to do 2 hours. So we'll probably be here until 11 o'clock. All right. So 2 o'clock from the time that because, we wasted time having to get people in here and stuff because y'all jackasses don't come in like you're supposed to. You see the bell, you hear it, get your butt in here. Okay. I'm at the doctor. So what? My kid's sick. So what? These are sound bites I'm doing for my enemies to talk about how evil I am. All right. All right. I'm the dictator. You show up here when I tell you. There's another soundbite for you. Mm-hmm. Take it and use it. Mauze wolf. Cobra. Look at this. See? There it is right there. Whoop. There it is. Whoop. There it is. Okay. Anyways, you get it. This is what happened. This is the kind of stuff I'm just giving you an idea of these storage buildings. We also talked to people about haunted hospitals. Holy crap, man. I didn't realize how many people had sent me stuff about hospitals. So we had met a group of nurses that were really cool. They worked at this hospital in Round Rock, and then they ended up, one thing led to another. We were there, and this is a very, very messed up thing. A man passed away across the hall from us. Okay. And that was people were crying, and it was messed up. The person that we were there with was very ill too, and I had to tell them to calm down. Like, okay, it's not going to happen to you. You're cool. Don't worry about it. But we were there with a very close person that's close to us, and she pulled through, but she was very ill, and it scared her, and so she kind of had anxiety. And I was just like, "Look, man, you're going to be okay." And but yeah, I mean, the nurses there were just like, "Yes, happens all the time." And Nellie was like, "Hey, we have a show we do," and we started talking to them about it later on. We didn't bring it up right then. "Hey, I know, man, just pass that." No, it was later on, and you were talking to them about it, and one lady told us a freaky story about people passing away and stuff. And then she got me in touch. Thank goodness, because she got me in touch with several other nurses and even a couple doctors who came through and were willing to tell us some stuff. One of the doctors from Houston told me a terrifying story, a good reason to get your life right with God, because that story scared the crap out of me in a different way. So this is what happens in these places. You got these people who work in these places, and anything can be haunted, and you don't know what it's going to be haunted by, because it might be as simple as like a human spirit, but it could be as bad as like a demonic entity or a jinn, or it could be a fae. It could be haunted by a demon, like you don't know. Dogman shows up, Bigfoot, all kinds of stuff. Stuff haunts things, You don't have to be a spirit to haunt things either. I know people who haunt things. They do. They just haunt things. They just go around it all the time. And you're just like, why are you always there? Because they're twisted. They are. And so this person, he says, my aunt got a storage facility down in the valley. This happened in the Rio Grande Valley. And I'm not going to give you the specifics because I told him I wasn't going to. She talked to me very little, and she was more like, look, I'm just going to let my niece and nephew tell you about it, because she really didn't want to talk about it. So she had kind of messaged it, most of it, the main stuff, and so I talked to them and asked them about it, and they knew most of it but not all of it. So I went back to her and I said, look, I know you don't want to talk about this, but there's a couple of these on here that I don't know what they don't know about it. And she's like, well, I guess his first cousin worked there and then later lived with them. So she gave them an earful about the stuff that happened, but even she couldn't tell us. So finally I did convince her to speak to me. So she gave me those two encounters. This is what happened. For about 2 years, she was running a storage facility down the Rio Grande Valley in a big town down there. And, I mean, being that it's predominantly Latino, you're going to have your, it's going to revolve around, if it's something spooky and weird, it's probably going to revolve around brujeria, and that is basically a type of just a catch-all term for black magic, but it could be Santa Muerte, which I think this may have fallen into that category. Not real sure, but she said when these people showed up, she's like, she saw in the back of the truck, there was this little Grim Reaper thing, and it was like a saint, right? And so she's like, down in the valley, she knew that was the saint of death, which there is no such thing. It's just an evil spirit. And it says, God gave me, or God created me, Jesus forgave me, she protects me. And it's a female, they say she. And so she said they were bringing stuff in, and she goes, and they had this altar. She's like, they brought in this little table, and then they brought in this, she could see them moving this stuff. And she wanted to scream. She's like, according to what I was told, she wanted to scream, like, don't bring that crap in my facility. She didn't want to deal with it. She did not want them to do it. And she's like, but I had already rented it to them. I can't control what they put in there. And she's like, and one of my workers, his name was Jesus. He watched him and he told her, he said, they're bringing in a statue of like this skeleton looking woman with a cloak, which is Santa Muerte, right? And so the saint of death. And so they brought it in there and they set it up in that storage facility. And they were coming by daily. And they were going into that storage facility. She tried not to pry because she didn't want to upset these people, because they were probably doing a lot of other bad things, right? But she was very, very suspicious that something really bad was going on. And sure enough, Jesus and the other guy, I don't remember the other guy's name that worked there, but they witnessed them bringing animals into that store and then closing the door. So they were like, okay. So she says, hey, you know, her and her boyfriend, she's like, and my boyfriend, he's a former biker turned to Christ, you know, and he's pretty rough guy, whatever. But she's like, I had him there. She's like, I had my brother, my cousin. We were all kind of there to try to look like we were, you know, brave. And they said that they came in and she says, look, I'm not going to be able to rent to you. And they're like, why? They got real, you know. And she says, because you're bringing animals in there. And they said, well, they're just our pets. And they're like, yeah, but we saw you bring an animal in there and then leave without the animal. And then you came back and then you brought something out with a trash bag. This is what happened. This happened multiple times, according to them. And so she says, we're going to call the police, you know, if you don't, you know, whatever. And they said, okay, all right, fine. And so they went and they got their stuff out of there. Before they left, this woman, okay, who I don't remember her name, she walked up to they never told me her name, but she walked up to the door and she threw water. And she said some words that they didn't understand, that sounded like Latin. And then she walked off backwards. She walked backwards and then got in the truck and they drove off laughing. No sooner had they left. She said it was like 2 PM. She's like, by 4 o'clock, she goes, we're sitting there and I'm working on the computer. She's like, my boyfriend is there, now husband, is sitting there with me. And she goes, we hear this laughter. She's like, it was like a cackling witch, like, you know, I can't do it like that, but you know what I'm saying? You know, however a witch sounds, that's, you know, they didn't get specific and I'm over here trying to do something. Probably didn't even, but anyway, she said that it sounded like a witch making laughter noises. And she's like, she's sitting there and she looks at her husband and she's like, now this facility, they didn't live at that facility. Her aunt did, which would be the person that originally gave me the story. That would be his great aunt. And they said that they told her, they went inside, they told her, they said, were you laughing? She goes, no, I was taking a nap. She goes, I thought you did. I thought you were watching something. What is that? And she said, well, we heard something, you know, and her husband would stay there at night. And so kind of keep an eye on the place, whatever. Well, later that night, this is the night that this all went down. They came and they were getting their stuff out of there. And then later that night, he heard like banging coming from the facility. Now, these are those metal doors, and you know what they're like, Anthony, those flimsy metal doors, you know? And he heard them like shaking, like a bunch of them were shaking at one time, like if the wind were blowing so hard that it was shaking them. And so he walks outside to go and check. These were the outdoor facilities, right? And he goes, I go out there, and according to his statement, he's like, the doors were all shaking on one of these rows, and that was where these people had their stuff. When he goes up to them, he goes to put his hand on one of them. He said it felt like something punched it. And he backed up and was like, oh. And then he hears what sounds like growling coming from each one of these. He can't put his finger on where it came from. But the number that they rented, he remembers that particular one, and he goes up to that one, and that is where he thought the source of it was coming from, but it was echoing through like several of them on either side. So they get scared to death. And so they're not even going to try to mess with this or open it. They run back inside. And the next day, she comes in and they're like, look, something's going on here. There is something that, this happened last night. And she is not equipped for this at all. She's like, I went to church. I prayed the rosary. She was Catholic. She did all this stuff. She goes, but I wasn't like really spiritual. I was religious, not spiritual. She is now. But she was like, I was trying to wrap my mind around what was possibly happening here. Thank you for that, gifting those. Folks, if your name is not in green, get it in green. Become a member. If you become a member, it's $5 and you'll be entered to win the contest. It's easy to win. If you haven't won before, just say I haven't won, because if not, we'll just choose somebody who already has. So whatever. So I was actually thinking about tonight, just doing it a little differently. Who first come, first serve, whether you've won or not. All right. Just be specific and say, hey, I've already gotten this. So we don't give you the same thing, because that's one of the things I'm trying to avoid. And just if you've won before, so what? So it's just going to be 3 people tonight, first come, first serve, right? All right. But if you manage to get in there and say, hey, I haven't won before, and then I'll pick you. But if you're, So anyways, get your name in green. So what ended up happening? Right? She says, I decide to call my other aunt, who is very religious, and we got to do it at the right time, dude. So as soon as that time comes, say that. But I'll keep you in mind. So she calls her other aunt. She's very religious. And in fact, her husband at one time used to be very wealthy and helped build a church down there. So he was like and he passed away. So she comes with some of the local clergy, like to check it out, to see what's going on. Well, they found out what was going on. The priest was immediately like, you have a demonic entity that's in these buildings. It's in these facilities right here. Somebody summoned this thing and they were sacrificing to it. He knew immediately, like he was very aware, and he had been seeing this more and more and more down in the valley. It's becoming very prevalent. All right. So are you joking, dude? Like, is this guy being serious?
What?
He just said it again. Like, dude, I just said what I was going to do. Just,
It's not time for the giveaway yet, so just stay tuned.
just chill out, dude. All right. So what ended up happening? This priest decides that he's, not equipped for this either. And he says he's going to have to bring in somebody, And so they opened this particular, spot. And the priest gave him a suggestion. Thank you for that, Evan. We really appreciate it. So he gave him a suggestion. He says, leave this open. Leave it open. He's like, don't close it and allow this thing to stay hidden in there. Let it, whatever. And so they did. And the ones that were emptied, they opened them. There were 3 of them. And oddly enough, those are the ones that were having the most problems. Here's what happened, though. 2 days after the priest leaves, there's nothing really of any circumstance that happens, but 2 days after the priest leaves, well, guess what? They start getting these phone calls. And they think that it's probably coming from the people that got their stuff kicked out of there. And they start calling them, and they're making weird noises. And then eventually one of these phone calls leads to her aunt, the one that was owning the facility, her aunt that stayed there, answering the phone, and this person began talking in this crazy language that she couldn't understand. And so she said it just was like guttural and it sounded demonic. When it happened again, her husband recorded it. He gives it to one of the priests. The priest turns it over to somebody and they translate it, and it's from Latin. And there was this blasphemous, I'm not even going to repeat it. There were all these blasphemous things being said about Christ, the Virgin Mary, the Holy Spirit, God. It was just terrible. There was all this nonsense that they were saying. And there was a threat in there. And they turned it over to the police. And the police were just like, What can we do? What do you want us to do? What do you want to do? What do you want to do? And so nothing happened. They didn't do anything. What shock. But anyways, nothing happened. Well, they can't really. I mean, what are they going to do? I mean, they don't know who it is. And so whenever I'm not going to translate that, Stacey. First of all, I don't even know. They didn't give me specifics. It was just some of it. Yeah, a little bit, but not enough. And it was blasphemy. So it was
she's not asking for it to be translated. She said there's actually some tongues that none of them can even translate.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Because I was just like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. Which I didn't think Stacey would be asking me to do that. But it's crazy. I'm sitting there going like, I'm not going to do that. But it's crazy because it continued. And then eventually, you know, they would block a number and another one would come up and another one and another one. And you know how it goes. And so it just went on and on. But there was something else that showed up, and it began appearing to the workers that would come in and clean and do stuff. And it was in broad daylight. And there was this thing. I say thing because I don't know how to describe it other than a thing. And it was like it was a man squatted down with its arms like this, completely black. It was completely black. The eyes were white, like paper, like dots. And this thing turned and looked, and it would blink. And it had a weird little floppy hat on its head. At least that's what they thought it was, or it might have been the head kind of, you know, jutting out the back. And they were frozen with fear, these two guys that were working. And they refused to go down that particular area. It was also on the darker side. There were some trees and stuff, and they didn't want to mess with it. They didn't want to mess with this, whatever it was. And they saw it there, and then they saw it like hop. And I say, yes. They got down on all fours and kind of hopped like a frog into the storage facility. And so they ran up to the front and they said, hey, you know, there's a diablo, there's a demon, you know, it's something there, you know. And so her aunt decided to go and get in the little golf cart and drive over there. She says, when I drove by, she's like, I look, she goes, and I see this dark spot in the corner. She said there was no sun coming in on that side. She says, I see it. It's right there. And she says she was looking at it. She's like, and then it leaned forward and she saw it move into the shadows. And she drove off real quick and she told her niece, the one who owned this place at this time. And she says, she's like, I don't know what that is. She's like, but don't expect me or any of the workers to go down there. She's like, if you want it done, you're going to have to come do it yourself because I'm dead serious. I am not going back. I saw something. And it wasn't large, so they took to calling it a duende. And then they said that it was like about 2 feet high when it was squatted down. So if it stood up, they estimated maybe 4.5 feet, maybe. Mm-hmm. Thank you for the donations. Hey, Abe, how you doing, man? So Abe knows a lot about South Texas and brujeria, whatever you want to call it. But anyway, these women were terrified. Well, the men too. And the one woman says, I'm not going to, she's like, she took to going and sleeping in her sister's house. They didn't want to stay there. Right. So then they hired a security guard because one night they got vandalized and they don't know how it happened because it was right there by where they sleep. And they have like a little upstairs thing or whatever. She's like, we were upstairs. I don't know how they didn't hear it. And she's like, that's where our office was. And so she goes, I was in there working late and I went to sleep. She's like, I went into a deep sleep up in the office. She's like, and I don't know how we missed this. She's like, but we did. And the next day there was vandalism. She's like, and I couldn't stay there. And my aunt wasn't going to stay there with her husband. So she's like, or her, you know, whatever. And she says, we hired a security guard. Can I get some water?
Can you?
Oh, no, can I? And so when they hired the security guard, he was there for a couple days. The guy was armed. And he was like kind of told, hey, this is, you know, thank you. Hold on one second. So hold on. So, excuse me.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good. Maybe I'm not. Hang on. Hang on 1 second, folks. Right. I'm back. So the security guard was there. The first night, nothing happened. The second night, he put in his report a bunch of weird stuff. They call him the next day. They call his company, and then they get his personal number. And he tells them, he says, look, I saw somebody that looked like a man walking around. This is really weird. And he was walking through the hallway, and he went into the inside where there was like the indoor whatever.
Mhm.
And he follows him. The description he gave, I'm kind of laughing. It's not funny. I mean, it kind of was to me when I read it. Okay, yeah, it was funny to me when I read it, but it's still a terrifying thing. But he walks into the facility, and every time he goes toward this person, the person turns the corner. He's like, and then there'll be this like long, this is what they were telling me. There was like this long hallway, and then he would get to the end of the hallway, and that person would be turning to the other hallway. So he just keeps doing this. And this goes on for like 20 freaking minutes, and then he just gives up. So he just sits outside, like he sits at the entrance of this, and you can see to the other side, and he just waits. Okay. But then 6 a.m. comes, it's time for him to leave. And so he leaves them a note on the door and says, look, man, there was somebody that went in there. I couldn't find them. You have access to the cameras. So what they did was they gave him access so he could go in, and they wanted him to stay outside, but to go in every now and then and check on the cameras so he could follow and find these people who were doing this. They never saw the person leave. They didn't even see what he saw because on camera, there was nothing. What's funny about it was the description of it was that it was what it looked like a native, but like not like a Native American, like North American, but like more for the way it sounds like if you were to picture like an Aztec or a Mayan, or maybe somebody from Mesoamerica in the South. That's kind of the description that seemed like to me.
Mhm.
And they were wearing like a loincloth, and he said it looked like a whacked out, wild, naked Indian. That's what he said. And that was what when they relayed that to me, that was his exact words to them. I started laughing, and I was like, wow, that's a mouthful. And that's really weird. That's really weird. But it happens. I mean, like, I guess people see this. Well, Devil's Backbone. I've had people tell me that they've seen what looks like Apache or Comanche wearing like loincloths. But this was like, this guy had, the way he described it was very specific. The guy had like armbands on, with kind of like this tassel looking weird, and it was he had this little rounded looking deal on his head, which to me speaks to it being like a South American native, not, or something from Mexico, which would make sense. But I know that some of these people, and this is what I told them, I said, some of these people who do these things that they do, they will have like a human spirit that has been, unalived, maybe way back, that is attached to these artifacts, right? And so it was just a funny like description or whatever. But this happened again. The security guard is there, and he's working, and he's like right there by his truck, and he says he hears like a knock on the front door. Like he's sitting right there, and you can hear like a audible knock on the glass. It's a glass door. And he doesn't see anything. So he walks over there, and he's like, what's going on? Maybe it's somebody inside, right? So he takes his key, he goes in, he punches in the code, and then he goes in, he sits on the computer. This time he gets a hit. He looks at the computer screen, and he sees a shadow, which he did not see with his own eyes. He saw what looked like a shadow being standing there. This shadow, whatever it was clearly visible right there at the glass, knocking on the glass. When it moved, it looked almost like smoke that was kind of clinging together. That's the only way that they could describe it. This being eventually went into, get this, this is terrifying. It went into the building. He's watching it on camera, and then he starts to he turns the camera, it gets to the, where it's in real time. And then he realizes the being, the shadow is actually behind him. And he's on the computer looking at it. And he's like, this thing is right behind me. Right? And it doesn't look like a naked Native American or South American, whatever. It doesn't look like that. It just looks like a big shadow. And the scariest thing about this shadow is it has horns. That in and of itself would be terrifying, but you're sitting there, he goes, and it's basically what they were saying was he was sitting in the dark, just looking at it by the light of the computer. But you could clearly see, because those cameras, they turn everything gray, right? Mm-hmm. He could clearly see it right there. So he stands up. He says, when he does, this thing puts its hands on his shoulders and pushes him back down into the chair. He's like, and then he's like, he could see the hands kind of moving toward his neck, and he jumps up again, and he sees on camera this thing reach for him. He runs out. When I was reading, I was reading this. And then I talked to them, and they were like telling me, yeah, this is what happened. This part scared the crap out of me because he tripped and he looked, he takes his flashlight and he clearly sees it coming out of the door. He sees this thing, right? But then he rolls and he feels like something grab the back of his leg and his buttocks area and pick him up by his pants, and he's trying to get away. And it's like he's almost like he is. He's kind of hovering. He's not a real big guy, but he's not a little guy. He was a little bit chubby from what they said. And this thing was holding him like in midair. He couldn't move. And eventually he got a hold of the ground. He started kicking, and it pulled his, not trying to be funny here either, but this part is kind of funny, but it pulled his pants halfway off. And then he dropped some of this stuff off of his duty belt. And he's like, he admittedly to them, he was like, I was screaming. Well, they're going to hear it anyway on the camera. Yeah. But I asked him, I said, did you see that on the camera? She goes, no, but we could hear him screaming because the camera outside didn't work. She's like, but you could see this shadow being behind him. But when they watched the replay, it was going from being like a shadow to a blur. Like it would be, you could see it, then you would see a blur. Then you'd see it, then you see a blur. So you got to wonder what that is, how that manipulation happens. Now, I have my own experience with the camera thing. I was working at a place called Palo Santos. It's not there anymore. It's called something else. And we helped clean it up. And we got a ton of evictions there because the people that were living there, the good people were like under siege and the bad people were just running amok. And they were violent and aggressive. They were dealing drugs and they were doing prostitution. They were doing every possible thing you could think of. And they would tell you, you'd be like, there's a curfew here. You can't be out loitering. I'm going to stay here till midnight. What you going to do about it? All right. And so, yeah, that's the attitude that they would give you. And it was a really bad place. Well, the cameras there picked up something really weird. And I've talked about it before. I'm not going to get into it on this. But yeah, and it happened to me and my brother. So the cameras were doing that thing where you could see the entity on the camera, not in person. So she's like, the lady that was there, and I didn't understand when I read this one. So this one, she actually told me, and then she confirmed what the security guard had said. So she said that, what's up?
I got a Rango story. She found her way out of that other room.
She's like,
I didn't even know she was here.
Like escape artist.
Like I just see, I'm watching you, and I see in my peripheral that this thing. I'm like, what the heck?
I saw her run earlier.
We're over here talking about shadows, and I see a little shadow skitter.
I saw her run. I thought she was being let out to run amok.
Speaking of which, that's what happened to me when I was coming around the corner here.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a shadow go into the door, just the bottom part. Sorry, the bottom part of the door, and I was like, okay, and I was like, no, I better make sure because everything's closed, So I go around, and then the door opens up, and there's this guy. I'm like, oh my god, I thought you were a ghost, and he started laughing, and I was like, he goes, no, he goes, I'm not, and then I had to explain to him why I was over there in front of his door. because I just wanted to make sure, like, because I saw it clearly, just
Mhm.
the black part, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, you thought it was a shadow person?
Yes,
No.
I did.
Well, we've had them here. So.
Yes, I know. But I was gonna double check and make sure.
So, well, good thing it wasn't.
I know.
So, what ends up happening, right? She tells me, she's like, I was there about 6, 7 o'clock one night. And it was wintertime. It was getting dark early. It was starting to become wintertime. She's like, when this all started, it was in the fall and it just kept going. She's like, this is about 2 months in. And she's like, and I remember it was right after Christmas. And she's like, and I was there doing what I had to do on the computer. She's like, and my aunt was really good about taking care of certain things, but she wasn't the bookkeeper. She's like, that was my job. And she's like, so I was starting to avoid this place. She's like, and eventually it led to us selling it because it just kept going. This weird crap kept going. And she said it went on for a year and a half and she'd had enough. And this happened about 6 months into them owning this place. And so she sold it pretty quickly because she lost a bunch of money on it. She was just like, to hell with it. I'm not going to, And so she was on the computer. She's like, and the same thing happened to me. She's like, I hear a knock on the glass and I look up and she's like, and I see, and nothing had happened for about a week, right? At least to her. And she's like, and I'm looking and I see this thing standing there. She's like, but she got a look at it that was like no one else ever did. She's like, it looked just like a demon. There was it was kind of like a man. It looked like a man. No, it didn't do that at all. It wasn't like a naked Indian guy. No, it wasn't any of that. She's like, it wasn't a little imp looking creature that hopped around. That's a whole nother thing. What was going on? She said this thing was tall. It had horns. She's like, you couldn't make out the face, just like eyes that were red. And she's like, and it was just big. Now, she's like, she goes, I got down on my knees under the desk and began to pray. She's like, I sat there for about 2 hours waiting for my husband to get off work to come get me. And she's like, I was absolutely terrified. I don't blame her. Here's what happened, though. Around her house, around her son's house, and her great aunt was having this happen up there at the facility. She said, we were seeing this little black imp-like thing that, and I said it to her when we talked. I said, I told your niece and nephew, they were relaying this to me, your daughter, who also worked there with you. And I talked to them. I said, but in your words, I said Duende. And she said, yeah. Yeah. She goes, I didn't know if you knew that. I said, I know what that is. And she's like, yes, it was like a Duende. She's like, and it was vicious. It was mean. It woke her aunt up, this little imp-like thing. Woke her aunt up. It bit her foot. And it didn't just like take a little nip at her foot. No, it bit and it left marks on her foot. And she said it was like a small child like bite, but with like canine looking teeth. Like you could see where the incisors went in. And I was like, holy crap, man. And she said this was awful. The canines of this thing. And she said that this thing showed up at her house. And her husband was getting out of the shower, a very devout Christian. He even did youth outreach and all this other stuff. Still does. They used to live in Corpus, but now they used to live down the valley. Now they're living up in Corpus. They got the hell out of there. But he was there, and he was taking a shower. And she's like, and my son and my daughter were there, and they heard him scream. Now, I know him. He's a big guy. I don't know him, but I know he's a big guy. I've seen photos. He's like 6'5". He's a big dude, man. Former biker. And she said they heard him scream, and she's like, he screamed like a woman. Like they thought it was like a woman screaming the way he screamed, because this thing, which he thought was a shadow on the rug on the floor, and they have a dog that's black, and he thought it was, the dog's name was Smokey. He thought it was Smokey. He was on the floor, and then he realized it wasn't, and he thought, oh, it's just a shadow, right? And there was daylight, so there's a window there. He thought that there was a shadow, and then this thing turns into like a ball and stands upright. but not completely. It was kind of hunched over, and it ran at him and began to claw at him and trying to bite him. And all it did was it just looked like a black entity with white eyes. And he fell back into the tub and was kicking at it. And then it like snapped at him and bit his foot too. It bit him. And then when the kids came and banged on the door, they eventually kicked the door because they just, they couldn't believe what was going on. And they saw it for a split second, like it was there, and then boom, it was gone. And then he got up. And so they were all going to church pretty regularly at this time. And that's what they were about to do, was go to mass. And so he was working with a non-denominational outreach program too, even though he was technically a Catholic. So he slowly kind of transitioned into non-denominational, but out of respect for his family and his wife's family, he still went to the Catholic Church, but he wasn't really participating. He was into non-denominational, whatever. So he went to the non-denominational church, and he got somebody that was there who had dealt with demonic possession. And they kind of teamed up with these two Catholic clergy. One of them was from a mission down there, and I know this because I've used to go there twice a year with my family. Not willingly. I was forced to, because I'm not Catholic. I went to CCD. I learned it all. I did all that. But, I mean, it was just to appease my grandmother and my great aunt. I know it sounds weird, but I had Catholics on both sides, and they were just like, and my dad, I was like, why do I got to do this? And my dad's like, because as long as they're alive, you're going to kiss their butt. You're going to do what you got to do. You're going to go, and you're going to pretend like you are into it and you like it. And so I said,
oh, that's a way to introduce you to religion.
well, it was Catholic religion. My dad like always like, Catholics, whatever. But yet when he was around them, he's like, he's doing CCD. He's doing really good, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, my mom too. Neither one of them, they were not Catholic. My mom converted. They were Baptist. And then they went to a Baptist church when we came back up here. Long story short, they didn't want to go there. So they went to a non-denominational and they stayed there. That's where they went Catholic for the rest of their lives. Well, yeah, most Hispanics are. But
profiling.
Huh?
Is it profiling?
Yeah, well, I mean, they really are. I mean, I'm just being honest. And so what ended up happening with this, he gets them together, and it worked. Whatever they did worked, because they went to their house, they went room to room, and they called it out, they renounced it, they like however, they do. I don't know the exact what they did, but I know what I do. And what Abe says is like, tie, bind, and rebuke you in the name of Christ. And they got rid of it. It was out. And they said that it was so weird, man. Her nephew told me, and her daughter too, that whenever this thing departed, the door opened and then it closed, and there was like a gust of wind that went with it. And the rooms were all cold like ice. They warmed up. So this thing took the cold with it too. It was really weird. Yeah, Joyce says I was raised Lutheran. Yeah, my uncle, and I don't know how he became Lutheran. I don't know, but he's Lutheran, and my aunt's Lutheran, and my cousins, they're all Lutheran. But yeah, Butch and Bev are Lutheran.
Oh, I don't know what that is.
Lutheran?
Yeah.
Like Martin Luther? Look it up. I don't have time to explain it right now on the show. So anyways, it's really weird. I mean, it's really weird what happened to him. She had to sell that place. She was like, and when they went into the storage facilities, one of the priests got attacked by this thing. Like, it actually kind of leapt on him, and he felt something fighting with him. And they couldn't see anything. There's nothing they could do. And her husband got scratched across his chest, 3 scratches, which I know people who that's happened to, including my brother. My brother had it happen to him. And I believe Scorpion did too. He had it on his legs when we were working Church of the Forgotten. So here's this crazy thing that happened, and these entities that were there. I say entities because there was more than one. There was this native-looking guy that was probably from a long time ago, who had been used in some sort of ritual, probably going way back to the Mayans or the Aztecs. Who knows? That's just my opinion. I can't prove that. I don't know. But they know that they found bloodstains all in that storage space. They couldn't even go in there. It was so bad. so dark, so evil. The energy there was palpable. They described it like when you try to breathe, like you can't breathe. There's like this crushing on your chest. And then at night, sometimes they would be laying there and they would feel like something would crawl on top of them. And they would just see this black entity with white eyes. And that was the smaller one that they saw. But it looked like it was wearing a mask almost. They also heard this thing talking in Spanish to them at night. And to translate it, it would say, he's coming, he's coming, he's coming for you, he's coming for you. It would say that all the time. So she thinks that, because we kind of jumped around a little bit, but that's because that's how it was told to me. But she thinks that that big entity with the horns, the one that she saw, was, and the one that grabbed the security guard, poor guy, all these people suffering from these beings, that this was the one that it was talking about, like he's coming, and it would say it in this frantic, hectic, giddy voice, like, yes, whatever. And I asked them, I said, do you think maybe there was more than one of these imp-like creatures? And they said, yeah, there probably was. I mean, there might have been one there and then one that followed them at the house. They don't think they were all the same, but they think that the big tall one was there. Now, here's what happened. She got violently ill with some sort of stomach flu. So did the security guard. So did her husband. Everybody and her aunt, the ones that were attacked, who touched this thing or had any kind of contact with it, the priest, everybody, they got really sick with this like stomach flu that went on for about a week. And the only thing that they really seemed to make it get better, because they all went and got antibiotics, it didn't seem like it was doing anything. They just said prayer, lots of prayer. They just rested and they prayed, and eventually it went away. But they were getting dehydrated, and a couple of them had to go to the ER, and they were like, man, you got something, but we can't identify what it is. And in fact, they couldn't find a virus or a bacteria that was causing it. So they thought maybe it was some kind of parasite. I'm like, yeah, no BS. It was a parasite. Yeah. So anyways, eventually she got it out of her life. She, but she's like, I'll never, ever, she's like, I won't even, she's like, when we moved, she's like, my husband was like, well, maybe we should rent a storage. She's like, he knew he was joking. She's like, because I'll leave my stuff on the curb before I put it in storage. So there's that story. Any questions? No? Okay, here we go. Okay, so no, I'm joking. Do you guys have anything to say? Move it over to you for a minute.
Well, I know that Santa Muerte is like a thing. People can confuse it for like some kind of like Catholic, like esoteric Catholic belief or something, but it's really not. It's something that's actually been condemned by the Catholic Church. And what it is, I think, is like a holdover from like Aztec, Mesoamerican, indigenous death worship, basically. I mean, the Mayans and the Aztecs spilled so much blood; it was just unbelievable. Blood of prisoners of war, of neighboring conquered tribes, their own people. I mean, there was just human sacrifice on such a mass scale that I don't think any other group of people have topped it, because they didn't view death as like, they just had a very different, unique view of it, and it's like it was just like nothing to take human life to them. So anyway, this deity, this Santa Muerte, saint of death, I think it's just kind of like it's this weird amalgamation of like indigenous death worship and like Catholicism that kind of melded together there in Mexico. But make no mistake, it's definitely evil, and I think a lot of people who say that they believe in it, whatever, like they may not necessarily know what they're getting into. That they might actually have kind of grown up in that thing and not understand that this is like straight up death worship. Like you are calling upon a demon. There's no in between. The demon, unclean spirit, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know that like not everybody who claims to believe in that is like a devil worshiping evil person, but at best they're ignorant, because like no informed person is going to claim that they believe in the saint of death and think that it's actually a good thing. It's because they don't know any better at best, or they're just straight up worshiping a demon at worst. Which in this case, those people, they fully knew what they were doing. I mean, you don't take animals into a storage unit and take them out in trash bags because you think that you're doing a good thing, that glorifies God or glorifies Christ. You know what you're doing.
Yeah, and they knew.
100%.
Yeah, and somebody asked the question, would I take a job at the towers again? No. I did. That was way back before I had my own business. I wouldn't do it now. I wouldn't. No way. Why would I put myself through that? I wouldn't put anyone else. Why would I sacrifice someone? Oh, be there. Hey, go work here and be tormented by demons.
For those naysayers over there.
I wouldn't do that. Huh?
Naysayers like the ghosts aren't real.
Yeah, well, that's not a way to introduce somebody to it. Like this is, I mean, I've worked at a lot of places. When I used to go do the liquor order at the club that I used to work at, sometimes there would be noises and stuff. I've told you, Anthony and Nelly, both of y'all. I know, and me and Anthony, you and I were talking about it the other day. But some of the things that we would see and hear, we were talking about it with your brother Adrian, and we would hear pool balls clacking, and I'd bring my dog up there, and he would freak out. And
yeah,
I saw a full-on shadow one time just get up from a table and walk out. It was like 3 PM, and it sucked because you have to go up there. And I started having to do it for my boss. And then when he left, I took his place. And so it was like, you'd be there at 3 PM and it's dark as hell in there, man. And they would be like, somebody would get up, like, you'd hear it. But one day I saw it. I saw like something get up and but the lights were on by the bar, because the bar used to all, like the wells were all in the middle. And I watched it get up, and I saw the table kind of move, and I saw the ashtray, because back then you could still smoke in the club. And the ashtray was kind of moving back and forth. And I watched this entity walk, like, or float really, and just go up the stairs. Like it was, and I heard noises up there all the time. And periodically by the woman's, or not by the woman's restroom, by the DJ booth, we would hear a woman scream. And I told you one time, I don't know if I've ever told this on the show. I can't remember. But I remember one time I got into a fight with some guys, speaking of motorcycle gangs, I'm not going to get into it, but they were part of a gang. And one of them introduced me to a chain and how painful it is when you pull it. And this guy he was about half my size. I was about 250 at that time, maybe. And I was solid. there was no fat on me. I was solid. I probably had maybe, I don't know, 6% body fat. I don't know. I was
funny. He introduced you to it like it's his friend or something.
It was the first time I'd ever been whipped with a chain. Wasn't the last. I had another person do it, tried to anyway, and I was a little more prepared. But you have to be prepared for everything. But this was my introduction to that. And he pulls out this chain, and I'm kind of laughing, like, I'm like, what are you gonna do? Like, yeah, it hit me and wrapped around, and luckily didn't put my eye out and caught me upside the head. And yeah, it was brutal. And I ended up getting control of the situation. But when I was being pulled off of this guy, there was another big guy that had gotten behind me, was choking me. And when I got lifted up, I spun around and I fought him off. The first time I saw this, there was a woman standing there right there by the DJ booth. And I think I got a picture of her. I found the photo albums, by the way, in the storage.
Did you really?
Yes. And so I have a picture of this. It looked like a barmaid, but from like the 1800s. And I saw this woman standing there
Right before you
And
got
she was
hit?
just, it was real quick. Like I got spun around because I was getting yanked away from these people. And I saw this lady standing there. I don't know how I could describe it. Like me and Tony compared notes when it happened to him when he saw what he saw over there at Brackenridge, but it was like The Grudge looking, you
That's
know
what
what I mean?
Tony
Like
said he
not
saw.
The Grudge, but like, or maybe The Ring. Is that what that? I've never
The
seen The
long
Ring,
black
but
hair.
I've seen yeah. It's just like
Bless
she was
you.
looking down, and I was like real quick. So after the fight, you know, I was talking to my friend Dominic and my brother and Tony's stepdad. We were all up there, and that DJ booth area was always having problems. People were always going up there and trying to beat up the DJs. And I kid you not, man. I didn't see this in other clubs, man. And I said this, and I'll say it again. That place was a brothel years ago, and then it was a stable. And we looked it up. There were several deaths that had taken place in that place. One woman was killed because, and this is horrible, she got pregnant, and so the people who were running it they tried to make her whatever, get rid of the baby, and she wouldn't do it. So they basically got rid of her because they didn't want it to be, at least that's the story. And I kind of believe it because I saw this. She's like this angry woman. And so when I would be there by myself, I'd go upstairs. I get the chills even thinking about it because there were a couple times I heard my name called, and it was Wolf. It was my nickname. And it would feel like the wind would blow. And then one time there was a cold front that blew in, and the back door blew open. And I open it, and there's all this cool wind that comes in. But it was spring. It was warm, and all of a sudden it was cool. And I thought, why is it all of a sudden this door's opening this way? And I was right there at the top of the stairs. Another time something grabbed my rag out the back of my pocket, and I turned and I saw at the bottom of the stairs, and I was in the back. I just a lot of weird stuff, man. I could do a whole show on that club. We've never gotten into it because I kept thinking, well, maybe I'd get D and Squid and Scorpion to come together and all talk about it.
So you saw her when you spun around after you were hit?
Yeah, I did. I saw her. Starscream's seen it too. It was right there by the men's bathroom and the DJ booth, because that was the loft area. That was the top floor because it was a 3-level dance club. So that area right there, the way the club is built was kind of weird. It was wonky. There was like a second floor, and that was just the woman's bathroom, and then it went out the back, and there was like a little area right there. And then the third floor was like in 2 different parts. There was a top part, and then it went down these little steps, and then there was like what really would have been like the second floor, but it was like kind of high up. And in all the years that I was there, I never watched anybody fall from there, but there were people who had fallen from there later on after we weren't working there. People had been tossed off of that top and been hurt, and one was killed. And then right outside of the club, there were several people that I watched expire, not just from fights in our club, but just from next door and different places, because the bars around there are all violent, and it was just always, I didn't know what the hell was going on. I'd go outside, somebody's laying there, and I'm like, what is this? It was just a bad, bloody place. And before we took over, it was something else, and somebody had been stabbed. And then one night I saw a guy get, and he lived. He actually lived. And then a couple years later, that same guy who did that, he didn't get in trouble for it. He tried that with me because he kept it in his mouth, this razor, and I was prepared, and it came out of his lip. Yeah, didn't work out too good. And then I see that guy who had his neck cut open. He went to prison. He got out, and then he sees me one day at 7-Eleven, and he's thanking me, and he hands me a bunch of money because he heard that I had beat the guy's ass. I was like, well, I didn't do it for him. I did it because he attacked me, and I didn't want to end up like you. The guy that got cut, his name was Frank. We were friends.
So what did she look like? Like
all the time, though, when the people would see these fights, they would see stuff like shadows and stuff around, like they're provoking it.
Yeah.
What she looked like, Nelly, she looked like she was wearing like a white gown, just like a gown, and she just looked like she had black hair, down past her shoulders. I don't know. That's just what she looked. It was real quick. But her eyes looked like they were kind of like, like she was haggard. And I know it was a spirit because she wasn't there. Like there was, when that was going on, there was nobody that looked like that.
Yeah.
Plus, if I remember correctly, she looked barefoot. And so I kept telling me, I was like, I think I saw a ghost, man. And the guys who had been working there for a while, I wasn't the head of security at that time. I was just a bouncer. So the guys that had been there and the head of security got big guy named Big Jim. Jim Del Medico. I'll never forget that guy. And he came to me and he was like, he goes, yeah, dude, people see stuff here all the time. He goes, I don't know if I believe it or not. I mean, after working there for a while, yeah, I believed it. The 2 other times I know for a fact, 100%, I saw something that was a spirit was in the woman's restroom, because at the end of the night, after everybody's gone, thank you for that donation. But we had to go in and check the restrooms. And I had some guards that were over there rock, paper, scissoring because they didn't want to go in the woman's bathroom. And I'm like, dude, get out of the way. You know, and Scream was one of them. Like we jokingly were on a live one time late, and it was after the show, and Scream and Scorpion were on there. And he admitted it, like he didn't want to go in there. I remember correctly. Yeah, so I just was like, get out of the way. And I go, so I started just checking it myself. And I was the floor manager at that time. And Willie, who's passed away now, but he was the head of security. So I just tell Will, hey, can you go and check the women's restroom? He'd be like, yep. That guy never argued with me. Just that guy was loyal to a fault. He's a 6'5" African-American guy. He was Creole. From Lake Charles, and that dude was the most loyal friend. Am I lying?
Mm-mm.
I mean, that dude would do anything for me. I mean, me and him were close. I mean, he was way less insubordinate than my brother. My brother and Scorpion, that was a different story, man. Scorpion would do it when he felt like it. We called it Scorpion time. And when he was on Scorpion time, yeah, whatever. Yeah, see, D says that woman's restroom is pretty scary for many reasons. Yeah, there were some bad fights in there, too. A woman got cut real bad by another woman. So this was a bad place. So I went into the bathroom, and somebody walked by me really quickly. And I had Big John. You remember Big John? Mm-hmm. He's a big old dude from Lockhart. Shout out to you. But he's standing there, and it went by him too. And he was like, ma'am. And he looked, and I was like, was that a woman? Because they went by unnaturally fast. So then it clicked. I was like, that's not a person. It was built like a woman, but it wasn't a human. It was just real quick. You know, it had the shape of a female, you know, sort of, but I just couldn't make out what it was. And so I walked out. And I was like, did y'all see that? Because it was Big John, and there was another guy who's, I don't remember his name. He was some kid who just worked there for a little while. And they were just like, he didn't see it, the kid. That's what was just eventually why I let him go, because he just never saw anything. Oh, I wasn't paying attention. Maybe just smoking pot all the time. But Big John was like, yeah, but he turned and there was nobody there. So we went all over the club, nothing. There was an area in the back when the club was they once had an office in the back, and they had a restroom back there. That was my private personal restroom. Nobody used it but me. And so I didn't let anybody go back there but me. And then we opened up a pizza shop back there where there was like a kitchen and stuff, because they had one time they served food. And so we had the pizza shop back there. It was about 2 years, and it did really well. People liked it. The pizza was good. We had a guy that was a Sicilian it was him and a Syrian guy that were doing it, and they were really good at it. And so, but that was kind of closed off. There was just like this hallway and then my restroom. And that was the creepiest area in the whole club. People were constantly telling me that they were seeing stuff back there. And get this, for almost 8 years, I never saw anything back there. Nothing, not a single thing. I was at peace. I went back there and used the restroom away from everybody, and I was at peace. I never saw. People claim they saw the doorknob turn, the knocking. None of that ever happened to me. But in other parts of the club, yeah, it did. One time, me and 2 bouncers, I'll never forget this. Squid was one of them, and we walked up, and there was, I can't remember the other guy. His name was like, I think his name was Tom or something like that. He didn't work there very long. He was from Georgia. I remember what he looked like. Really nice kid, but he was just, you know, there were people that were just transient, you know. They'd come and then they'd leave, and then they wouldn't stick around, because it was kind of like, you know, it was a job that you could do. You didn't have to have even if you had a criminal record, you know. So like if you do security, you can't have a criminal record, whatever. You got to be whatever, but you know, you can do what can be like a night watchman or whatever. You can, but you can't wear a uniform. You can't be an official security guard or anything like that. So there's all these jobs that you can't do that, you know. But working downtown, you could be a bartender, you could be a bouncer, you could be a busboy, whatever, a bar back, you know, the people that stock the stuff, you know. And you don't need any kind of nothing. Yeah. So it was a great job for people that just passing through. They'd end up downtown. And so you'd meet all these people that were transient. And I remember he was from like Georgia or something. And I remember him only because I remember him, he got stabbed in his hand a couple months later. And we see this woman laying on the dance floor upstairs in the second floor dance floor. There was 3 dance floors. And so we go up to the dance floor, and I said, hey, man, get her. What is she doing here? And I turned because I heard somebody call my name. And I turned, and I can't remember. I think it was Chief or somebody. And then we looked back, and they were like, dude. And I was like, what? And then I looked. There's nobody laying there. And they're like, she just disappeared. She's gone. Like, she was there, and then she was just, like, blinked out of existence. But I didn't see it happen because I turned because somebody was calling me. I think it was Chief. So thank Chief for that. Way to go, Chief. I didn't get to see her disappear into another dimension because of you. But anyway, yeah. Yeah, you're right. Scorpion just said the woman's restroom is always cold. And there was so many things that would happen there, like all the time. People would come to us too, and they would report someone harassing them. And we had cameras, and there's nobody. One of the weirdest things I think that happened to us, and this was weird. I had a woman that was just said that this guy would not leave her alone. He was grabbing her. And so we look on the camera because she was so rabid about it. And she was, unfortunately, her sister used to date one of the owner's friends, and they were making a big deal. So the owner was like, okay, let's go look at the cameras. And I was like, this is a fool's errand. There's nothing there. I didn't see anybody around her. So we did, we humored them, and we're looking at the camera, and all we see is her turning and like talking to somebody, but there's nobody there. I kid you not. It was like 5 or 6 of us in there. Ash was there. We were all there. And I was like, what is this? And then here's what got me. When I got up, I said, well, we've seen it, you know, sorry, ma'am. I don't know what to tell you. And I wasn't one of those ass kissers. It's like the owner's your friend or whatever. I don't give a damn. I don't care. Okay. He can fire me if he wants. All right, whatever. So I walked out. I was like, I don't care. And so I was standing there with the bar manager, and we were talking, and he was like, I don't know. I didn't see anything. Neither did I. Well, later at the end of the night, because it was a busy Saturday night, right? At the end of the night, we sat down, and I remember Sammy, who was the general manager at that time, and he was like, I worked there like, you know, whatever, off and on, you know. And I had seen it all. And Sammy goes, come here and look at this. And he shows me the camera. You do see I say something, I don't know what, but something pulled this woman. You could see her kind of come off the bar. Like something had pulled her top, like her head, yeah,
for sure.
You could see it. And I go, oh, dude. And so we all kind of were like, dude. So we rewound it and we played it again. Something similar to that happened. Now I know we've kind of veered off or whatever what we were going to originally talk about, but this is creepy stuff too. And so there was something that happened at this club called Inferno that was across the street from us. That was our sister club. And I was one of the people that was overseeing the construction of this. And I was getting aggravated because the owners had left to go back overseas, right? And so they left me in charge to go and like say, hey, you need to do your job or whatever. And they were moving so slow, you know, and I had to go in there and basically like my brother always makes a joke. He went in there with me and I had to get onto these people. And it was like Darth Vader, you know, it's like, I'm more forgiving than him, you know. I just had to stress to them, like, look, if you don't get this done by the time they return, there's going to be problems. And these aren't normal people I'm working for. Let's just put it that way. And so these guys kind of were like, oh, okay, yeah, quit playing around and let's do this because You're making me have to deal with you, and I'm trying to run a nightclub, 2 of them, and then now I'm having to deal with you, and I'm starting to get pissed because when I come over here, you're listening to music, you're not doing anything. So that was where we were at. So I had to go over there a couple times, and finally, one of these guys, and ironically, his name was Armando. He tells me, he says, "Hey, Patron," he said, "Let me talk to you, man." And this guy was Colombian, and he was pretty nice guy. He had a crew and everything. And I sat down in the back office, which was also like it was weird. There was like a room back there that was set up like a bedroom. So the previous owners had been staying there for a while when they were trying to sell it. And I didn't know their story. I think because I don't know. I'm assuming this. I'm thinking it was something to do with like he didn't have a place to live because it was like he was going through a divorce or something like that. Somebody told me that, and I think that's probably what it was. And so I was like, this is weird. And he goes, yeah, there's something back here in the back area. My guys don't want to go back there. Well, not only were there a bunch of bats in there, yes, bats. We had to get bats out of there. But something was back there in the back. And one of the workers was grabbed by something that pinned him up against the wall and slid him across it and threw him. The other workers didn't have anything nearly as severe as that. This guy quit. I never talked to him. This is what I was told. But some of the other workers did have some situation where they would see something. And that something looked like a black, shadowy thing. There's no way to really describe it. It was like a mass, but sometimes people would see legs and they would see like arms come out of it. It was like a ball with like arms and legs. That's the way they described it. And then it smelled like sulfur. Now, I had to go back there one time. Well, not one time, but multiple times. And I would sit there at the front and wait for these morons to show up. And eventually they would show up. So I had to go to the back. And I was sitting back there, in the little office area, which was weird because it was like a bedroom behind me. It was just weird. So please like and subscribe, guys, if you haven't liked. And so I'm sitting back there. And I just hear this, like, it was real quick. It wasn't like, it kind of sounded like somebody said, hey, like real quick. And I was looking at the computer and we were doing like this inventory, but it was for the materials and stuff. There was no liquor or anything coming in yet. And I was like, what the hell? And I already had to deal with the Roxy being haunted as shit. And I was like, man, what is this, man? And so I got up and I walked back there. Dude, that whole room was cold as hell. And the guy, what I was told, the guy that was sleeping back there before they sold it, he either worked for the guy that was selling it or something was going. I don't remember the whole story, but he was supposedly an alcoholic. And he was having a bad time, whatever. So something was probably on him, And I could feel it. I walked toward the back. It was like this long room. And I walked toward the back of it. And I felt like a presence. You could feel it. It was palpable. And I just was like, I rebuke you in the name of Christ. You need to leave. Dude, that room got ice cold. I could see my breath. And this was like in June. And I was like, oh, and I felt like something trying to choke me. And I just walked out and I stood there at the doorway of it. And I just kept doing it. And I got more forceful about it. And eventually it just stopped.
I'm trying to scare you into stopping.
It was trying to get me to quit. Yeah. And so I couldn't sit there, though, at that desk. So what I did was I turned the desk and I put it up against that wall so that, but then I didn't like being where somebody could come in behind me. But you had to because there was something there. And it got weaker, over time. So eventually we had a guy that went and started staying there. And that was, remember Gabriel used to work for us? He stayed there for a while. And he told me, I remember one time we were at Rio Lotto together. He told me he saw some weird stuff in there. And I was like what? And he described this, I don't know, the way he described it was like a man that was hunched over. I don't know. It was just a weird place. So I was in there one night and we had some really bad fights in there too. Bad fights, bloodbaths. I'm not even joking. People getting stabbed, people getting tossed off the landing. I mean, there was a landing right there. I personally fell and twisted my ankle really bad coming out of the attic. The area where the attic was, they call it the attic. but it was really lounge up there. It was really nice if they would have put more effort into it. If it was me, I would have like made it to where it would look decent even with the lights on. So they kept it dark so they didn't have to show how crappy it looked. But the owner was cheap, and he was trying to, he was just trying to get people in there to go dance, and people did. He achieved his goal. But for me, if it was me and I was going to do something like that, I would have put a lot more money into it, and I would have made it look nicer to where you could, you wouldn't have to have it pitch dark in there. But there were a lot of people that were so afraid of that place because there was a lot of weird stuff there. And some of the workers there told me some crazy stories. Like one of the bartenders said he was going and they went to reach for a bottle and it just came off the shelf and broke. And that happened more than once. Or they'd go to grab a glass and it would move, one way or the other. And this kind of stuff went on and on. And then there was something up in the attic area, I know, because I went up there looking for my brother one night. Because he had gone downstairs to use the restroom because the upstairs restroom was messed up. So I went in there. It was a Sunday night. We were closed on Sunday. So I went in there to have a drink because I used to drink and party and hang out and do stupid crap. So I went upstairs and I was like, oh, you must be upstairs. And when I went up there, I was turning around to walk out and I heard somebody go like that, like they, trying to get my attention. Kind of in between like a whistle and a, like a, I turned around and there was nobody there, but I saw something move from right to left. And I was like, whoa. And I knew that wasn't a person. And it would look like it ducked down behind the end of the arm of the couch. And so I just walked over there and I looked and I had a flashlight and I was like, oh, there's nothing there. And so I walked back down. So I told Big Sam he was running at that time. He eventually became the manager over there. We were sharing the responsibilities at the other place. He goes, yeah, dude, that place is whacked out, man. He goes, I'll go in there to do the liquor order. I'll hear voices, see all kinds of weird stuff in there, and our Ash was bartending. He was the bar manager there for a while. And the same thing. He said he would go in there and if they saw this like shadow looking entity by the bar, there'd always be a fight right there. So my theory was this. I think that these evil spirits that were hanging around these places are getting all this energy from these people. And then they were pushing the issue, making people fight.
It's like a negative feedback loop.
Yeah. And it was just perpetuating. It was a perpetual.
Like people would feed that these entities negativity and they would get power and have more influence over people to then force them to cause more negativity, violence, drugs, what have you. So it's just like a self-perpetuating cycle,
Mm-hmm. And LX says, when I was younger, I would kind of hear whispers, but then I got on lithium for BPD and it stopped. I took lithium when I was real young. And eventually they didn't give me anything because they were like, you don't need it. They just were trying to give me something because I had, ADHD and I was always getting into fights as a kid, But we grew up like, we were always all fighting. We were like, whatever. We were always like punching each other or whatever, the way we grew up. She says, I never heard what they were saying to me, though. A lot of crazy comments in this. Well, I'm sorry that you have that, Alexis. A lot of people do, but it doesn't mean you need to be on medication. But, be careful because that stuff will mess your liver up too. Lawrence just hit it and it causes brain damage. So if you can get off of it, get off of it. But I'm not your doctor. I'm not telling you what to do or telling you to whatever. I just don't agree with any of those medications if you can help it. Right? I try to take anything like that sparingly. It is what it is. So, okay. So in the description, so anyway, we could talk more about the club. I could tell you a million ghost stories from that. I've been thinking all this time of how we were going to approach it, but because I don't want to talk about it and then we do another show and then I'm like talking about it again because people are like, oh, you already told that story and you're telling it again. And, or somebody told that story and now they're telling it on another channel and you're just telling it again. I don't want to hear it 3 times, 4 times. So I get it. All right. But changing gears here. What did we say we were going to talk about? Dogman.
Duende, Dogman, Bigfoot.
Okay,
Ghost.
and now get this. Friday we have Melvin Greathouse. I think is his name. I think that's his name. Let me double check. Let me see if that's. I want to make sure I get his name absolutely correct. Yep, Melvin Greathouse Jr. He's coming on Friday, and he's had reptilian encounter. He's got some stuff. He used to live in New Mexico. Strangely enough, we were at Dutch Brothers yesterday, and that's our favorite coffee place. I drink decaf, but so we go and we get coffee, and there was a girl there. She's native. She's a Pueblo from New Mexico, and she gave us a skinwalker story, but it was so – there was so much going on. I said, look, you got to get in touch with me. Either come on the show and tell it, or I can retell it, but it was crazy. And then her uncle saw it too. So they were living on the reservation in New Mexico. So that's going to be really interesting if she comes on. But I told her, I said, it's funny because, or not funny, but, you know, it's interesting that we have a guest coming on that was in New Mexico on Friday. So he's going to be on Friday talking about Dogman and reptilians and Bigfoot and whatever, ghosts. So Melvin, I got him from Abe. He was on Abe's show, and it just so that's what's happening. So we have a Dogman story that I got to tell you that's really gosh, I don't even know how to describe it. Some guys were out in a pasture, let's put it that way, and they had a terrifying night of something. And so this ranch that they were staying at was being terrorized by what they kept calling a skinwalker, but I told them I don't know. I don't know what, you know. Yeah, so that's coming up on Sunday. That's going to be, man, I really enjoyed listening to it. You know, the two of the main, or three guys, but two of the main guys that I talked to, I really didn't talk to the other one, but it wasn't like, you got to remember this happened to people. These are stories to you. They're encounters, but these really happened to people. And these are real guys, man. These are cousins, but it happened to them. And it terrified the crap out of them. And it was interesting to me. I was listening and I was just like, gosh, this is crazy. Hey, Bigfoot Rob, what's up, man? But you're just like, you're floored by this. You know, you're just like, wow. I mean, it never ceases to amaze me. I've heard all these stories, these crazy, wild stories people give me. And it's funny because me and Rob were on the phone earlier today. We were talking about that. He's going to be the guest on Paranormal Soup this coming Sunday, folks. So after we're done talking about this crazy Dogman encounter, he's going to be on at 11 o'clock with Jason Bland on Paranormal Soup. Pat Mitch says, a lot of weird stories throughout my life. Pat, get in touch with me. Send them to me. Let's talk about it. Because I'm always looking for encounters, man. I have a huge database, but I want it to be bigger. You know, that way we can do what we do and go through and pick out what we got, you know. There were so many when I was looking through that storage one. Dude, I got to show you. There were so many different stuff. I couldn't even keep my mind, you know, on track. I was like, so I decided I was going to do kind of a paranormal potluck tonight. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. That's why we decided to do Wednesdays too, because Tuesday we'll drop a pre-record. Then you got that for an hour. And then Wednesday you got a couple of hours here. We didn't get started until like 30, 40 minutes in. So, you know, we're going to keep going, but you got to check it out. You got to check it out. I mean, the shows keep coming. Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, the guests, we have guests, and there's always some good stuff, man. Harley Owens, great information. Pictures, everything. I still don't know about pictures. His pictures, yeah, I get it, but I still don't know about putting pictures up because it's still kind of, to me, it always seems like it kicks off arguments.
No.
And that's what we get. So then, yeah, the pictures, and then, you know, Saturday, we don't really do much. But Sunday is our big show. We have a big show that comes on Sunday. Alan Garcia, thank you for that, man. Thank you for gifting those.
I think that's the second time he's done that.
Second time tonight.
Appreciate it.
Guys, if your name is not in green, we're going to do one of the giveaways right now. So if your name is in green, let me know if you haven't won before. But if you have, it doesn't matter. Just if your name is in green and you can do it before somebody who hasn't won, you win. So just tell me right now. But if you've won before, you got to let me know what it is that you want, because I don't want to give you another black hoodie if you've already got one, right? Tony Mendez says I won before. So when did you win, Tony? How long ago? A year ago. Good. You win. What do you want? Tell me what you want. Tell him what he has to do.
So I want a black TV.
We didn't give away TV, so I think that's quite impossible.
Yeah, I'm not sure who sent you a TV, but it wasn't us. Anyway, so to anyone who is a giveaway winner, make sure that you send your YouTube handle, your mailing address, and your shirt size to Josh Turner at PRTpodcast.com. We usually have it scrolling there at the bottom of the screen. I can put it up so that it's right there at the bottom of it. It's going to scroll like in a little banner. Josh Turner at PRTpodcast.com. You can send, again, your mailing address, your shirt size, and your YouTube handle, and we'll get your stuff sent out.
Tony says I won a month ago. He goes, I got a black shirt. Well, we already chose you, so you just won again. You're a lucky guy. You get to win again. How about a hat? How about we send Tony a hat? You want a cap? We'll send you a cap. How about that to match your shirt? Alexis says, I want to win. Your name has to be in green. I would love to give anybody, whoever.
David Buchholz.
But you got to be in green.
He says, I'm pretty sure I won a new Dodge Charger.
Well, you didn't win it from us. You might have won it from the Hodge twins. I don't know.
You might have won like a $5 off coupon for a new Dodge Charger from us.
ED says I've won, but I haven't got it yet. Did we? I remember seeing your stuff. Did we sent that off what? Friday?
Yeah.
So it may not have been back yet. Any snapbacks? Well, hey, go get the hats. Let's see what we got. We can do a hat giveaway tonight. Do that. Sean says, in the time of chimpanzees, I was a monkey. Butane in my brain. Yeah. What is it? Time is a piece of wax, isn't it? Falling on a termite that's choking on a splinter.
It's my favorite part. So poetic.
Yeah. So,
wait,
we're only doing that right now. These are the people that what's it? Okay. So we're only doing that one right now. We're going to do 2 more before the night's over, but for right now, that's what we got. Okay.
And Spilling Tea had a question. She wanted to know why do you think you had peace in that area when at the club when?
I don't know.
Maybe because all the chaos was outside of it.
I've never figured that out. Why so many other people saw things back there. We had a waitress that went back there one time and claimed some black shadow thing tried to grab her. Because we used to keep like some of our where the pizza shop was, it wasn't open on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. It was open Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and so on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, sometimes, you just be back there by yourself. So she had to go back there, but it wasn't a night where the pizza shop wasn't. They were running late, and it was early in the night, and we hadn't gotten it open. Because I remember the guys that worked there had a wreck. Well, they weren't hurt. Somebody hit them. And so they were running late. And so none of the people wanted to go back there, especially the females. And so she said, I'll do it. So they were going back there.
That's all I can get to right now.
So they went back there to get whatever it was, which I think was like some plastic cups or something like that. Because we usually drink out of glass. We had glasses, which at that club was a terrible idea. Because they end up as weapons. But she goes, go back to get the plastic cups because there was a big party. And so we were giving them their shots were in these little plastic cups. And so we did that when they had like these really big parties. And so the people didn't have to wash like a bunch of dishes. And so I said, yeah, there's a big party. I remember it was a Thursday night because Thursday nights we had all the big parties, the fraternities, sororities. So she went back there to get plastic cups. I specifically remember this, and something grabbed her and wouldn't let her go. And when she came out, she was crying. And she was asking for me. And so I came up the stairs because, I don't know, I guess my workers felt safe around me or comfortable. Because some of the other people, like, they just didn't care. And so she wanted to go home, and I told her, that's fine, go home, no biggie. Because I knew it was messed up. And I'd walked back there a couple times when people had claimed to have seen things, and it just never showed itself to me there. It never did. The downstairs bathroom where the office was, there was a bathroom there where the office was. But the other managers and people would use it. And so I was just like, look, the second floor bathroom is mine, or whatever, third floor. Y'all can use this one.
See what that guy said.
What happened?
That guys. I was listening to you and I read that.
Wolf wore a Leviathan.
That's why.
Yeah, my thong kept
It was
away.
strong.
My thong was strong.
Strong thong.
Strong thong.
Gotta stop reading these when you're talking.
Dang, Melissa says she won a T-shirt in June, but didn't. Oh yeah, that's because we didn't. See, if you don't get your stuff after a couple of weeks, just don't be afraid to email me or message me and say, "Hey, look, fathead, I never got my stuff." And I'll be like,
"Give me my winnings."
I'd be like, "What have you done for me lately? I haven't seen a donation there in months. Do you want to save your soul?" Oh, wait, that's the church. Never mind. And not all the churches, just certain ones. Somebody says, finish the Dogman story.
Which one? Were you telling a dog?
A Dogman story.
He said that he was gonna tell it on the next live stream.
That's going on Sunday.
On Sunday, not the next live stream.
We do have a Dogman story we can tell, and I'm thinking about it, but I don't know. You're being rude.
Did you see what Lawrence Morgan said?
Why don't we give them a Dogman story if they reach a certain number of likes? Because they're terrible at hitting that like button.
They don't ever hit the like button. So here's the hats we got right now.
We need at least 300 likes. How about that?
This is one of those like.
There's 282 right now.
Ones. This one was my favorite. I used to wear this, and I had the 4 tusks on it.
Oh yeah.
But we only have one of these left.
You need to get a jean one made to match your
And we
jacket.
have more hats. We have more hats. And we got an order of them, but we just probably can't get to them right now.
Yeah.
Because when we were moving, we moved a bunch of stuff up here. So you say we need to get a what? A jean hat?
Mm-hmm. To match your jacket. That would be cool. With the paint splatter, like in the 80s.
Yeah. We gotta go back to the 80s tonight, man. That's why I wore the jean jacket.
Everybody talk like the 80s. Was it awesome?
I don't know. How did we talk in the 80s?
That leaves me right out.
I
have no idea.
I usually
you were born in 1990, weren't you?
Yeah.
So you missed the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Then act like you weren't born.
I really I liked the 80s. I liked
You just like?
Well, I liked certain things about it, but I didn't like sports at that time because none of my teams won. So I really didn't. My 2 favorite things in the world in the 80s, back when I was a kid, were baseball and football. Like literally, I played baseball, I played football, and that was just kind of, that's what I did. And then I would go out and shoot my gun. I mean, it was that's pretty much it, man. Like I ran around out in the country, and I grew up shooting copperheads. I mean, I kid you not. It was like, I liked, and sports was such a dominating thing in my life, but I enjoyed baseball cards and football cards because those were my 2 favorite things, was baseball and football. But I also liked like comic books. Like I was into comic books. Like I remember like the Punisher and Punisher War Journal #1s. I had those, and I was all proud of my comic books from the 80s. And then I realized later on that in the mid to late 80s, or mid 80s to mid 90s, they overproduced everything. There was too much comic book, too much baseball card, and it's just not worth anything. Those eras just did not worth anything. I mean, unless you get them graded and they're real nice, But the 80s, I hated the 49ers, and I hated the Giants, and they were winning back then, and I just hated football. Like I hated the NFL because of it. Like I didn't like those teams. But I actually liked the Giants more than the 49ers. because I like their coach. I like Parcells.
We got them like she said that's rad. It was Alexis and then spilling tea for sure. Do it.
Yeah, there's Lawrence Morgan. I had the Punisher War Journal come with all his weapons. Yeah. I had toys in the 80s. Of course, I was a kid, so I played with toys, but I had G.I. Joe. I had Transformers, and of course, Star Wars was kind of like the end of the 70s into the early 80s, and then that was it. It fizzled out. But after Star Wars was G.I. Joe, Transformers, and He-Man. And I had a bunch of those. I traded with my friends for a lot of it, too, because my parents really couldn't afford it. But I had some pretty cool Christmases up until a certain point when my mom and dad separated, and then Christmas sucked. But up until that point, though, my mom always made it a point to get me like several of the action figures that I was missing, That's the thing I remember. Me and her collected action figures together. That's something I always remember fondly. Anyway, enough of that. Talking about what were we? I don't remember where we were at.
You said you had a Dogman story in the chamber. Give it to him before you reach 300 likes. We're at 325.
Okay, good. So, anyways, switching gears here from the club and all the weird things that went on in the club. And like I was given a story by some guys on a ranch, and that happened in South Texas too. Suffice it to say, South Texas is pretty haunted with a lot of weird stuff. I would just say that. This particular story comes from Australia, and this is the one. It's not a real long, drawn-out story, but it is pretty damn scary. This happened near Queensland, and these people, this guy finally, you know what, dude? I'll see you later, man. This guy's like, finally. Like, dude, no, dude. Who did I just block? Oh, I blocked Lawrence.
Why did you?
I got it.
Because it jumped. Lawrence, I apologize.
Are you gonna
Yeah,
I'm blocking this other dude. Well, I'm not gonna block you, D1. I'm just gonna
unblock.
Unblock Lawrence.
All right.
I'm just really not in the mood for this. Please, it's not tonight. And you'll know why if you go to Rumble afterwards, and I'll tell you exactly why. And I'm not gonna do it here. All right. But
Thank you, Joe Two Pops.
so, anyways, man, just let's knock it off with the snarky comments. I'm in zero tolerance for that right now. Okay, don't please. So this guy, he gave me a story. They were driving right outside of Queensland, and now everybody in the world drives on the wrong side of the road but us. I don't know if you know that or not, but we drive on the right side of the road because in America, we're not dumbasses. I can't even say that with a straight face.
We do everything
we
the
are
right
the
way.
dumbasses because we use the imperial system, whatever.
It's the rest of the world that's wrong.
The rest of the world use metric, and they're like, well, it's kilometers. And I'm like, in English.
We ain't scientists.
But actually, I do know kilometers pretty well. But anyway, he says, dude, he goes, we were going, and he was moving pretty quick too. Okay. In kilometers. Well, in miles, he's like, it would have been about 80 miles an hour this guy had gotten up to get away from this thing. He's like, we were driving out in the countryside. Like it would be the country for them. And he says this thing, they hit something that looked like a mass, like a shadow on the right side of their car, and it kind of spun them around. He's like, and then we came to a stop. He's like, it was him and his wife and his wife's cousin. They were coming from a dinner party right outside of Queensland. And this thing literally comes out of the ditch where it had gotten hit. They thought that it was some kind of an animal, but they didn't know what, because there's not really something that big and hairy in Australia. And they didn't know what it was. They were like, what the hell did we just hit? And so he sees this thing come out of the ditch. And he's like, when it did, it was hunched over. It had its arms out in front of it. And it was so weird. He goes, it kind of, at first, he's like, it kind of looked like just like a greyhound because it was kind of skinny. He's like, but it was so weird. It was at night and they could see it was a grayish ashen color. This is what really stood out for this encounter. This is one of the reasons why I chose this encounter, because it was so weird. What these people witnessed was this thing get darker to where it looked almost like it blended in with the night, with the darkness. Now, I don't know any creature that can do that, save for maybe an octopus, right? I'm going to say something after this encounter, and you got to listen to what I'm going to tell you. Okay? This was not, I didn't speak to this person. I just read it, and I went back and forth messaging this person, but I believe this person, and I'll tell you, because I've known him for a long time. And this just happened like maybe 3 months ago. So he goes, never had this encounter before. Never. People had claimed on that road that they had seen something. So this thing comes up on, off the ditch, out of the ditch. It's gray at first. It's like a mass, blackish gray, whatever. Then it turns black. And then it becomes bigger, like this greyhound looking kind of scrawny shape that first came out of the ditch becomes bulkier, and it looks like it's standing upright, taller than it was. At this point, it stretches out over the top of their car and digs in, grabs the hood, and peels it partway back. This is what it did. And it turned its body, like swiveled its hips, and the car kind of spun off, almost falling into the ditch. It literally threw the car like 180 degrees. Didn't throw it. It just, like it threw it, but it didn't. Yeah, it spun it. So what animal on earth could do that? This thing is standing there, like it's heaving its chest, and then they see it kind of like grabbing its mouth and dapping its chest and looking at it. They could see through the headlights that it was bleeding, and it looked pissed off. So then it goes up to the car, and it just kind of just does this like angry, like Hulk Hogan, like thing. And they're all sitting there witnessing it. So they start backing up, and it starts running towards them. Then they spun back around, and when they did, it reached over and it yanked on the back door where her cousin, now she was laying down with her feet up, and it started to pull on the door, and it tore it partway off. And then they drove away. This was a 4-door sedan. And like I said, it was only messaging. I didn't get the make, model, whatever. And then they drove. He said, dude, we got up to 80 miles an hour, which would be in American miles. This thing was running alongside the vehicle, keeping pace with them. And then eventually it just veered off, and it was gone. So I saw pictures of this car. I don't know what to think. It doesn't. I mean, I can't say if I posted the pictures, I don't know what you would say. You'd probably argue and say, well, this isn't, whatever. Here's what I think. Taking all this in, this wasn't that long ago. It was back in like November. How many months ago is it? November, December, January, 3 months, right? Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. Taking all this in. Now in Australia, it's fall over there. It would have been spring here. It would have been spring down there.
Yeah.
He said, and then of course it gets into winter. Summer. So he said he went out there a couple other times this last month, and just with a couple friends, just drove by and showed him where it happened. One of his friends claimed back in 1997, which was a long time ago, that something similar to that happened. That this creature, about 3 or 4 kilometers from where that was, which is almost right on top of it, this thing came up out of a ditch and ran up and rammed the back of their car. Here's what's different about that particular encounter. The thing that hit their car had horns. Yeah, horns. Horns like a ram. And they believe that it butted the car. He said, dude, there is no way that that's a freaking coincidence. Something that attacked his car, and he says attacked because even though he hit it, he thinks it was laying in the road to be hit. That's what he thinks. And he doesn't know why he thinks that. He says he just feels like that's what it was doing.
Something's telling him.
Yeah. Now, we're going into the mind speak thing. One of the things I forgot about the last encounter that we talked about, this imp-like creature that was doing what it did, like terrifying them. It was using like this mind speak to put words into their mind. Like they would hear things and not know if it was being out vocalized, like he's coming, it's coming, like it was, and they were terrified. Well, these things do the same thing. There's a Bigfoot story I was going to get into too. I don't know if I have time. It's getting late, but this particular encounter, now I told him, I said, do you think that this thing was giving this off and it was just a feeling, you know? And I messaged him this and I said, or do you think that it actually spoke? Was it something that spoke into your mind that gave you some sort of feel like that was, you know? And he says, dude, I didn't realize it. This is what he messaged me back. He said, I didn't realize it until I went home and went to sleep. He's like, and then I dreamed about it. When he dreamed about it, that's when he had he remembers the vocalization in his mind. And what it did was basically say, you know, like, oh, now you messed up. Like it was doing it like to antagonize him. That was but it wasn't words. It was just like the thought in his head, like, you know, this thing was basically baiting him and saying, oh, now you messed up. Now you've hit me. And now I'm going to do something to you. But
set the stage.
I also wonder, though, because if you have something traumatic like that and you go home and you go to sleep, you're going to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it wasn't night when he went to sleep. It was in the morning because him and his wife and his friends came over. His friend came over. And his wife's cousin was there, and she was hysterical. And, of course, he had to slap her around a little bit to make her calm down. I get it. You know, it's just how they are. You're just like, stop it. Stop it. Now eat some fruit salad and calm down.
But being hysterical, say.
Get out of my freezer. That's the last Jell-O pudding pop. No, you cannot have that. I told you you could have some of the leftover fruit salad we brought home from the dinner party. I don't know why I'm assuming that would be fruit salad there. I just think that there would be. And plus, I wouldn't mind eating some. Haven't had any in a while. Guess I'll just have to starve.
And give it John Wayne treatment.
Yeah, John Wayne. Yeah, because you know when women get all hysterical, they're like, ah, you just got to go, psh, psh, you know.
And that fixes everything.
Yeah, and that fixes everything. They stop with the bad noise.
Let me hit your reset button, darling.
You know, my listeners over there, like the bad ones. I'm gonna get him. I got him now. Yeah. He's talking about hurting women. He's don't ever hurt women.
We don't attack women.
We don't attack women just all the time. Yeah, sure, whatever. But yeah, I just when he said that they couldn't, you know, and he said when he goes, I fell asleep on the couch. That's interesting because that's where I fell asleep temporarily after what happened to me. We sat there until the morning and I fell asleep on the couch. And I woke up and there were nightmares galore for years. You know. But, you know, and I'm joking about it. You never hit people, women or otherwise. You should never hit a woman if you're a man or a
Gil
child.
Sanchez.
That's not your child, you know. What did Gil say? Roach abuse. So he said though some interesting things. Now let's break it down because this is a serious encounter. I made a joke, but it's not. You know, it's serious what happened to him. So I asked him this question. I said, "Are there military facilities?" It's not an official one right there, but there is a facility not that far from where he was at. But he thinks it was defunct ever since World War II. And I told him, I said, "Well, that means that you think it is, but that doesn't mean that that's what it is." So what if, and now this is a what if, this creature that they came across, and think about it, what if somebody was tampering with something and made that thing? I say this only because it changed color. I didn't talk to the other two people in this, and I actually didn't speak to him, although I have spoken to him before. He used to be in one of the groups I was in, and I've spoken to him before because he had a Yowie experience. And I'll get into that one too. If you want to go, we'll tell that one too. His name is Judge. Oh, that's what we call him.
That's a cool name.
Yeah, but Judge told me something very weird. He says, dude, this thing, when did it jump to 686? It was like just moving normal, and all of a sudden, bam.
It's YouTube being weird.
Eatertron, that's what did he say? Melissa, what I saw might explain a bunch of. You need to get in touch with me, man. Please put the thing at the bottom of the banner. I'll do it. Let's see.
Excuse
Down
me.
at the bottom there. Yes, don't let it happen again. But you won't get smacked around, lady. They're going to be like, he was threatening his wife on the show. Oh my gosh,
Well,
I can't believe it.
no one says, "Go make me a sandwich, toots."
This is almost as scary as the Maha movement. Make America Hitler again. It's horrible. It's horrible. I don't know what we're going to do. They want to take all the fluoride out of our delicious food and water. I'm just going to have to eat toothpaste.
They're like gelflings trying to defend the Skeksis.
Oh, yeah. They love them. They
The
love 'em.
Skeksis love us.
We always serve our lords. You know. Yeah, whatever. But so I told him, I said, do you think that this thing could have been a genetic mutated? And I asked him, I said, Judge, are you 100% positive that this thing changed color? He said, yes, absolutely it did. Now, back in 1999, he had an encounter with a Yowie. He was up in the Blue Mountains, and get this. He was with a friend, and that friend had a rifle. All right? He claims that this was a Yowie experience he had, right? This was years ago, like literally 25, 26 years ago. He says, dude, my friend was with me. I had no clue what we were doing up there. We were supposed to go camping. He was up there looking for the Yowie. And my other friend didn't tell me. He goes, and I didn't know this guy that well. He's like, in the middle of the night, he goes, we hear this grunting noise. He goes, and I opened my tent. He's like, I see this being that's about 7 to 8 foot tall by our standards. He said that this thing was going through their food. Like this was like an actual physical thing, right? It was. When he shined his light on it, he goes, the only thing that was weird about it was the body, everything looked solid, but the right arm that was holding the can, I could see through it with the flashlight. He said, my friend, I'm sorry, not a rifle, he had a handgun. His friend opens the tent, like the flap of the tent, his tent. He sees this gun come out and he clicks it, and it is a revolver, a large caliber revolver, right? He says, as soon as he pulled the trigger, I heard a bang. He goes, I see a white flash, and this being, which I can only describe as a Bigfoot, or what they call a Yowie, disappeared in a flash of light. And so comparing these two encounters, and I told him, I said, what did you, he's like, well, when I messaged him, I said, what did you think about the differences between these two, right? And we were messaging, and he says, this being that I saw my friend's friend, because it's really what he was, shoot at, that disappeared. He's like, I always thought, after that, I thought it was the ghost of a Yowie or something. I didn't know what it was, but it manipulated and moved around food. This other thing that he saw, he says this was distinctly different. And at the beginning of this, I just saw this thing laying in the road, and I thought there's a person or a dog all in black. It didn't even cross my mind that it was a Yowie. It didn't look like one. It looked completely different. And the way it changed shape when it got up and was, angry, obviously. It's a weird thing. It's a very weird thing.
It is. David,
so we went from 686 to 486.
David asks, he wants to know what a Yowie is. Can you explain that?
A Yowie is a type of, they're not just found in the Blue Mountains, but that's kind of where they're particularly, like they're people see them, in the Blue Mountains of Australia. That's where a lot of Yowie researchers go. And a Yowie is the Australian version of Bigfoot. From the descriptions that I've gotten of Yowies, and I haven't gotten a ton of them, but I do have a file on them. The ones that I've gotten seem to be tall and lanky, but some of them have really big shoulders. But they can be really aggressive. Okay. And I know that throughout Australia, they're found all over Australia, the Yowies. And I know that the Aboriginals are in fear of them. They're some of them, some of the people, like the white people, will say, Oh, they look at them as brothers, but that's not what I've been told. So maybe they think that they look at them as brothers, but I don't think that's the case. But that's my opinion. That's just my personal experience. Looking at this other creature, this other critter, I think that this was not something where they went into that region and ran into. I think this thing was, I think it was something that was genetically modified to look that way, to be able to change its shape and to be able to get bigger and stronger and put on mass really quickly. It can manipulate the environment around it, but to be able to change color. I don't know. That's my opinion. Maybe a shapeshifter. I don't know. What these guys saw at that ranch, we're going to talk about it on Sunday. They said it was a skinwalker. People throw that term around all the time. Now, the girl that I talked to last night at the coffee shop her name is Celeste. Just gave me her name. At Dutch Brothers. She lived on a reservation, and so she said skinwalker, and I'm thinking, well, yeah, she's a Pueblo native. That maybe, yeah. But then we got Melvin Greathouse, who saw a lot of weird stuff in New Mexico too, man. I think that some of it wasn't it in Albuquerque? Mm-hmm. Some of his experiences were in Albuquerque. This is where she was at, So skinwalker, probably throw that around, yeah. But this right here, I don't know. And there were so many other questions that I was trying to ask that he may have answered while I was coming to the show. But, we were going to talk about it either tonight or we were going to talk about it on Sunday, but here it is. So those are his encounters, basically, in a nutshell. He had 2 encounters. Now, here's the interesting thing. And we've talked about this before, and I'll say it again. I said it 1,000 times. People will have ghost encounters and they'll have UFO encounters, like what happened to Harley. And he saw UFOs too. This guy saw an orb when he was a child. Here's another encounter that he had when he was a child with his brother. So Judge was a kid. When he was a kid, him and his brother, they saw what looked like a yellow orb float out of from the hallway, float into their bedroom and out the bedroom, out of the window. This happened twice. One time it was yellow, the other time it was orangey yellow. He said it was kind of like an egg yolk. That's how it looked. And then one time when it was just hovering outside, they saw what looked like a little, which I would just describe it as a gnome or a duende or a little imp-like thing, fall out of it and then take off running. But it wasn't running in the direction of the house. That would have been really creepy. Mm-hmm. But it ran to their left. So, but the house that they lived in at that time was definitely haunted because they saw an old woman there periodically in the kitchen. And sometimes him and his brother saw it differently. His brother's daughter, years later, when his parents passed away, his brother took the house. And so when his daughter was little, she would say that the old lady would scream at her, go into the bedroom and yell at her. So, and if you think about it, like this family has this ability to see these things, or maybe they were exposed to it. And then later he has the Yowie experience with those people, which I think was something definitely spiritual because it just disappeared in a white flash of light. And that's weird. And the guy that took him up there originally was his friend, and he didn't tell them what they were up there to do. This guy claimed he was a researcher and was doing all this stuff. But he said that. And now here's what the guy told him about that, because he told me that story years ago. And I thought about doing it in an episode about Yowies, but I never got enough of them, like 3, maybe 4. He said that this guy told him that was not the first time that he had encountered one of these things. He knew where they were at and that they would do that. But sometimes, and I get this guy's out there being really stupid. Okay. And he lost touch with him. You don't know whatever happened to this guy. I was like, well, he probably became Yowie poop because he kept messing with him. But he would go up in the Blue Mountains and he would shoot at these things, which now I think it's illegal, the firearms or handguns or whatever. Like you can't have one in Australia. You probably can't even have a stick out there. They're so ridiculous. They're like, nah, you can't have a stick, mate. Why do you need the stick? Well, you got werewolves and yowies. Yeah, it's fine. Just let them eat your face. Let them eat your face. Just a little bit. You don't got to let them eat it all. You got to call us. Get the phone. If I say, hey, what are you doing? What are you slack-jawed mother effers doing? Get over here. I'm getting eaten by yowie. How hard is that?
No worries.
No worries. Instead, you're over there with like Yosemite Sam and Doc Holliday just shooting away, blasting at the yowies. And then they disappear in a white, whatever. What do you think's going to happen? But if you let them eat a little bit of your genitalia or your face, it's okay. Then you won't get arrested for defending yourself with your stick. We'll let you have the stick as you picked it up off the ground. Now, if you take it home and you try to sand it down and make it into something useful, we'll come kick your door in, mate. You understand? And then we'll put you in a room with a kangaroo that will beat you to death. This is the punishment in Australia. I don't know for sure. I'm just saying this because I don't live there. But
you know what? I just figured it out. They're not saying no worries. They're saying no yowies.
No yowies. No owies. Yowies. So otherwise.
So that means it's all good.
And then, of course, you got the capital punishment. They throw you in a pit of crocodiles. There's a crocky right there. Those crockies take you down and do the death roll. That's what you get. You're on your own line, challenging the government. And that's a penalty for that. And you can't do nothing about it because we got your guns. You see how that works? You thought you were cute, huh? Going around, talking about us, making fun of our accent. Guess what? Pet of crocs. Boom. Boxing kangaroo. I don't know for sure. I'm just pure speculation on my part, folks. But if I had to say, I would say, yeah, their government's doing that. But that's just based on my research from other governments. Sage Cooley says, what in Scamania, Washington, is illegal to hunt Bigfoot? I've heard it's illegal in a lot of places. Respect to the Aussies. Yeah, I like the Aussies themselves.
Yeah. They're good people.
They're cool. I just know I'm a fan of the government. The government's a bunch of right wankers over there. Right? The quicker they become dengue pope, the better. I had I call him my brother, but he was somebody that one of my friends. He worked as a dingo wrangler. Now, how do you get a job like that? Because he married some crazy Australian woman. She's cool, man. I mess with her, but But anyways, she got him a job working with her dad, and their job literally was to go out into the outback and deal with dingoes. Yeah. Because they're a what do you call it? Species
endangered?
No,
protected.
They're not endangered.
Protected.
Invasive species.
I was just going through all the lists.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff going on over there.
Looking back, I should have started with that one.
But anyways, folks, that's all we got for tonight. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. We got to do the giveaway again. Did we do 2 people already? We got 2 people, right?
Did we?
Did you write them
I
down?
think we got 2 people.
Did anybody write them down?
The first one we did, it was somebody who had I thought it was. Yeah, Edna. Thin them out. Yeah.
All right, so Susie Lyon says she's never
You've
won.
never won, Susie? Then you just did. Okay. Did we pick 2 or did we pick 3?
I
Tell me
know.
in the chat there, folks.
Not
Wait, you know what?
Walker 117 hasn't won.
Night Watcher? Okay. All right, you got it. You win. You guys send me your information. I'll put the link on there again in the
Spirit
banner.
Bear, Surfing Spirit Bear didn't win.
There it is.
Hey, you can put Lolo's most previous comment on the screen too. She said, if you won the night, please send your shirt size, date you won, your name, YouTube handle,
Thank you.
and your mailing address to Josh Turner at PRTpodcast.com.
Yeah. Jason Finch says, I don't know how to win. Jason, it's real simple. Just become a
member.
Yeah, member.
And it's the little $sign where you would normally push the arrow to approve your comment.
Reiterate it there. All right, folks. So join us over at Rumble. Okay, we're just going to go from here. We're going to go right over there, and we'll be at Rumble. So if you want to join us, Pat Mitch says, "So ignore me." No, I didn't ignore you. Why would I ignore you?
Because if we can't join to get green, does the super chat work?
Yes, it
He's
does.
been having problems with it. Oh, the super chat works, but you got to get the maybe. You can
Pat, I would
explain it.
never ignore you. Why would I
Yeah.
do that? I'm not
I love
that
you,
guy.
Pat.
Yeah, Pat. I know that you were having problems commenting on our channel for some reason with your Pat Mitch account because your other account is Patty, and you know I told you that you weren't on our block list, so I don't really know like why you weren't able to comment until now with your Pat Mitch account.
Jason says my information doesn't work, so I can't. I don't. What do you mean your information doesn't work? Jason, you've been around forever.
Jason.
Oh, I'm being serious. Jason, private message me. Okay, just hit me up. We'll talk. You've been around a long time. Maskis Mouse says he probably missed your comment, but he didn't purposely ignore anyone. Yes, I did. I'm secretly Russian spy. I'm here to infiltrate evil American empire for Russian bear. That is why I made Bear King. Because Russia, number one, America, number 249. That is how much strong we are than America. America going down big time. You support silly sissy land, Ukraine. We now own, it is now state belong to Russia. Yes, 100% Cobra. Yes, Mother Russia. I am Cossack. Why I would join your silly channel? Why I would do this just to get information to give back to Moscow, my motherland. Now they're like, he just came out and admitted he was a Russian spy. I knew it all along. We knew we hated him for some reason. Anyways, no, folks, I'm not from Mother Russia.
Gil wanted you to say moose and squirrel
What?
in Russian with your Russian accent.
Moose, say moose and squirrel?
Yeah, I guess
Moose and squirrel. From Mother Russia with love. Mother Russia. You see, big, strong, you weak. That is difference. Right. And with help of whole world, we can conquer any other country. I made this Russian guy so mad one time because I was like, he was like, we defeated the Germans, Nazis. I said, no, you didn't. He said, yes, we did. I said, yeah, you had everybody helping you. No, we did not. I said, yes, you did. You did, literally. You had the Allies giving you all of this supplies. I was like, one-on-one, you would have got the shit beat out of you, and you were. You couldn't even get a plane up in the sky. Your tanks were like paper mache. I was like, I don't know what y'all were doing, but they penetrated deep into your country. They were like 11 kilometers from Moscow. Everybody wants to pretend like that didn't happen. No, it was because the United States and all these other countries gave you supplies because your factories, everything was knocked the hell out. And then the cold set in because Hitler was a dumbass. And he was just like, you don't need like a jacket. It's June. You'll be back by September. You know, you'll be done. September, you'll be back. It's cool. It's all good. And they're like, well, it may take longer. It's a big country. Hitler's like, nine, you don't need that. Why are you making this hard? Just go. Kick in the door. It's rotted. It's communism, whatever. And they're like, yeah, but we might need jackets. No, it's June. Nobody's cold. You're the only one cold. Go to the camp. That's where you belong for asking those stupid questions. They're like, what are you in for? I did ask for a jacket. I said, maybe Russia would get cold. I mean, it's not the quick thing. It's just something we did. It's going to take a while. Guy looks like Colonel Klink, you know. He's like, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Then after they're like all freezing their ass off, Sixth Army's encircled, they come and they're like, and don't say you told us so either. So what if you were right and we lost all those people? Stalin's over there like, whoa, thank goodness. Oh, I was getting my ass kicked and I ran to the Siberia like a little bitch. But now I'm back. Strong man, 5'2", Tom Cruise. They got to use him to play Stalin. I mean, it just fits. It just fits. He's so sickening, that little turd. Nazis ran out of supplies. Yeah, they were out of supplies. At the end, they were fighting a two-front war, and the Russians were, if you ever read about it, man, it's just dark. It's really dark. It's like two bad things going head to head. I mean, it's just, how do you choose one and go, that's the better one? When communism, literally the Iron Curtain, I mean, it just after the war, it was the most despicable display. And they did nothing. They didn't care because they got what they wanted. And that was it. They used geoengineering to make the temperature drop 60 degrees in one night. December 9th, installed the advance before Moscow. Yeah, I've heard of these types of things. Who knows? But anyway, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening and to all of our crazy stuff we do and say whatever. If you won, please message us. The people that won the last one, the last 3 people, your stuff hasn't been sent out yet because we're going to send out next week. Because literally it's 21 degrees here. It's freezing cold. And people are like, oh, really? Up here in Wisconsin, Michigan, whatever, it's 10 below. And I'm like, well, good for you. It's cold either way. My ass is freezing. My butt cheeks are literally freezing. They're cold as hell. Okay? So I'm of the opinion that once it gets below freezing, it really doesn't make a shit. Okay? It's cold. I don't care who you are. Because I've seen people down here, they're from like wherever, Vermont, Hampshire, and they're like, yeah, well, where I'm from, it's 1,000 below zero. It's like the surface of Mars. Yeah, whatever, bullshit. And then, but you don't see them running around with their shirts off down here in the 20s.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't even see you wearing shorts.
It's like, why are you wearing a jacket, Yankee? I thought you're so used to the cold.
Yeah. Shut your Yankee mouth. All right.
That jacket off your Yankee ass.
What's that song by what's his name? Unknown Henson?
Mm-hmm.
The Rebel. He's talking about a Yankee smart mouth.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just messing around. Some of my best friends, actually, most of my best friends are Yankees. I forgive them for their
trespasses,
their ethnic shortcomings, because they act like it's an ethnicity to them. You're from the South, and I'm from the North. And I'm like, yes, you're a North-going Zach, and I'm a South-going Zach. I'm going North, and I'm not going back. And they're like, that can't be because you see, green eggs and ham is all I want to be. And some other silly shit. But no, the point is, it doesn't really matter, okay? Whether you're from the North, you're from the South. I mess around. I call people Yankee, whatever. It's just some bullcrap. Johnny Reb. It's like,
oh, jeez.
Yes, I'm a half Latino Johnny Reb. Okay? All right. So meet us over at Rumble, folks. Thank you for tuning in. Huh?
You got to say, let's get ready to rumble in the Russian accent.
Let's get ready to rumble. All right, guys. We'll see you.